be first and last of what God made, and that's the truth. But man, keep on trying to hold me back while another chicken head come home to use. Too strong, try to do me wrong, and the last one standing will order hand command you to dance. Oh, dance.
What tell your preacher and your teacher, I'ma give what you love. I got to give you what you love. It's time to give you what you love. Give you what you love. Give you some love. Yeah, baby. I said I take your time. Take what you love, baby, just enough. But never too much, baby, take your time. Take what you love and work it, baby, cry. You better look at that, baby. Take your time. Take what you love, baby, just enough. But never too much, baby, take your time.
Welcome. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and man, oh man, alive, do I have the kind of lineup that'll make your toes curl today, starting with Dr. Ayla Stanford, who is on the line. Let me just make sure, for those of you who are under a rock and have no idea who Dr. Ayla Stanford is, she's an experienced physician with an impeccable record of delivering patient care. She cared for and operated upon patients in North America and internationally for 20 years. Her business has blossomed into the founding of the Real Concierge Medicine Company, and now she is the founder of the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium. Dr. Ayla Stanford, are you there?
I am here. How are you, Andrea?
I'm good. I am just always so excited to talk to you, and I know you don't have a whole lot of time, but the people in this state, in this city, and in this country, I know you've been on MSNBC, you've been on CNN, you've been all over the place, but locally here, you are our voice of reason for COVID-19. I saw an article that you did with the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I posted it on my page on Sunday, asking people to get themselves together and to pay attention to what you are saying. What update do you have for us today, ma'am?
So right now, I am in North Philly at Esperanza, Hunting Park, and Fifth Street. And we're testing folks. People are lined up down and around the block to get tested. We got families in here who are positive, children, elderly, everybody in between. This feels a lot like April and May. But we're out here, we're providing the service. We're also doing flu shots. As you know, the positivity rates are going through the roof in our city, which is why the new restrictions were put down by Commissioner Farley and Mayor Kennedy, and they needed to be put down. I just want folks to wear your mask. Do not have large gatherings at your home. If the person doesn't live in your house, they shouldn't be at your house for Thanksgiving. This is not the year to invite everybody over and bring their dish. They're just the people that live under your roof. And if you want to do it, get tested and quarantine for a minimum of 5 days to make sure you don't have any symptoms. Don't go anywhere and just go to your loved one's home. If you can't commit to that, don't do it. The risk is just too great right now. We can't afford to have more diagnosed and more people lose their lives.
You know, Dr. Ayla, again, this is the second time that you have done this. The first time was on March 10th when you told me not to get on that plane and to put on my mask, even though they were not asking for us to wear masks at that point. I think you have literally saved us all. When I saw your article on Sunday, I called my son, the one that lives closest to me, who had great plans for coming to spend Thanksgiving with us. And I said, you have to do this, and this, or stay with your tribe there. He opted to stay with his tribe there, right?
Of course. People,
yes.
I mean, and that's part of the reason why, and this is my family too, that we are in this predicament that we're in. You know, some of it, of course, not some of it, but a large portion was lack of leadership and guidance, lack of information, mixed messages. But then once we had the information, it's people doing their part. You know, there's no I in team, as people say, except Kobe, who said there's a me in there. But in this instance, there's no I in team. And in order for us to get these cases lowered, everybody has to stay safe at home, right? If you don't need to be at Walmart, if you don't need to be at the mall, don't go. Only go to the grocery store when you have to go, and try to make it a good trip. Get everything you need. Don't have small gatherings. People are like, oh, it's just my man X. I know they're good. You don't know they're good. You don't know where they've been, you know, and they may not have been anywhere except work. But if they happen to drive a SEPTA bus, if they happen to do janitorial work, you know, if they happen to be a bartender, if they happen to be a waiter in a restaurant, if they happen to be a police officer, those individuals, if they happen to work in a grocery store, those individuals are more likely to be bringing it to you because they are in direct communication with the public. And that's how it's spreading right now. That's how it's spreading. So how we can do our part, don't have those gatherings. Please wear your mask. I saw someone in Starbucks today. I went to pick up my online latte, and they were sitting in there working with no mask on at all. And I told the person, I said, you might want to tell her to put her mask up to protect you because you're in here working all day.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, 1 in 2 African Americans know someone who was very sick or died from coronavirus versus 1 in 10 or 1 in 12 white Americans. So for many of us, this is real. And unfortunately for others, it's not real. It's still a hoax. It's still, this doesn't have anything to do with me. It's not tangible. They can't touch it. They can't feel it. So they don't know how serious it is. They're just mad that their kids can't go to school. Right? And so we're just living in a world right now where one person's reality is not another. But this virus is definitely real, and everyone needs to do their part. And that's putting on that mask, not having those large gatherings, not needing to go out all the time, staying away from public situations, washing your hands, cleaning down the surfaces. And let's just pray that at the top of 2021, we can see some trends in a downward direction in our system.
Yeah. Right now, Dr. Ayla, and I know you literally have 2 or 3 minutes left with me, so I'm soaking it all up while I can, and the WURD listeners absolutely love you. I have a mug for you, by the way, that I've been holding on to for months, post-COVID, because this is just too much. The hospitals are overloaded. Governors who were first saying that the masks were all a hoax are now changing course. Why do you think they're also afraid at this point? What is coming down the pike that the majority of Americans who are so caught up in their own personal, I have to go see my family, can't see right now?
I think it's just not real for them. They haven't been touched. You know, they see people on the news talking about, I lost 6 family members to COVID, but that's foreign to them. It's not a world they live in. It's not their reality. But when I pull up to a testing site and people are in line 90 minutes before we start in the cold, wind, and rain just to get a COVID test, when my staff members are saying their spouses tried to go to their doctor to get a test and they said it'll take 48 hours to get an appointment at 10, or someone says I tried to book something at CVS and Rite Aid, there's no available appointment. I mean, this is tough. We have no cure yet. So the only thing we can do is test and do contact tracing. Those are our tools. Those are our weapons and our armamentarium to decrease the spread. So we are just doing our part with the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium to let folks know their status so they can, if they've been around folks and they're positive, let them know so they can stay away from folks so they don't keep spreading it, and we can stop spreading this disease around.
All right, so my last question for you, and it just went right out my head. This is why I write everything down. Oh, my goodness. So the people are really running all over the place trying to figure out how to put a damper on this virus. If we don't get a vaccine, we just heard on the news, my husband was laughing at me because he is in that first 2 or 3 groups where he's an educator and he has underlying conditions, and the rest of us have to wait until the last set of things come out. What do you want to say to people who we know are skeptical about vaccines, about this particular vaccine?
So what I would say is it's not going to be for everybody. We need to get the information. We need to get the data. For example, I've been exposed to COVID, and I have coronavirus antibodies. So when I see the report being on the Philadelphia Department of Health Vaccine Advisory Committee, when I see the phase 3 data, I want to know, because I've had COVID and because I have antibodies, is it safe for me to take the vaccine?
Right.
Or are my antibodies protective enough? And if so, how long? Those are the types of things I'd like to know.
Okay.
But for other people that have a multitude of comorbid conditions and or they work in an occupation where their exposure to coronavirus is great, for them, the risk of contracting coronavirus, getting sick and or dying is worth the benefit for the vaccine. So for someone like that, they should definitely get it. So it's not uniformly everyone should. We need more information so we can make an informed choice for us as individuals, not collectively as a race or ethnic group of people. Because one size doesn't fit all in this situation.
Right. So you're at Esperanza now. Where's the location? Or can you not take it?
So we are Hunting Park and 5th Street. Don't ask me. We're down here in North Philly. But I know I turned on Hunting Park and 5th. We're out here till 4 o'clock.
Until 4 p.m. Okay, that's what I wanted people to know. And I just got a thing from True Light Fellowship Church that they'd like you to come and do testing there. Who should they they should just go on the website?
They should call our main office, right. You can go on the website. You can call our main office as well. And if you don't mind, I'll just tell you where we are the rest of the week.
Sure. Yeah,
so
sure. Go ahead.
We're at Esperanza today till 4. On Thursday, we will be at Sharon Baptist Church in West Philly. On Friday, we'll be at Deliverance Evangelistic Baptist Church in North Philly, near Dobbins. And on Saturday, we'll be at the Leah Chorus Center from 11 to 4. So get that test before Thanksgiving, guys.
Yes. The Chorus Center. And these are all from 11 to 4?
No. Saturday is 11 to 4. Friday is 10 to 2. Don't quote me. Go to the website. But I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Friday is 10 to 2. I know Thursday night is 4 to 7 because we try to get a lot of folks as they're coming home from work.
Got you. This is all important.
But please go to the website. It's on there, www.blackdoctorscovid19consortium.com or just Black Doctors Consortium. It'll all come up, okay?
It'll all pop up. The people on social media are telling me to let you know that thank you on behalf of them all. So thank you, Dr. Ayla. You're our rock star here in Philadelphia, and we so appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll let the people know all the things that you just told me. I'll repeat it for them all. All right?
Okay.
Have a good one and be
thanks,
safe
Andre,
out there.
and thanks for spreading the word, okay?
Not a problem. Not a problem.
All right.
See you soon.
Talk to you. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. We came out of the gate with a bang with Dr. Ayla Stanford, who is a pediatric surgeon, and decided when she got on the air with me for the first time on March 10th, 2020. That's the first time we all began taking COVID-19 seriously. She actually came on the air to talk with me about being a black woman, a woman who is making history for Women's History Month, which is in March. And as I sat there talking to her, the conversation about COVID-19 began, and she told us then, this is serious. If the people in China are wearing masks, we should be wearing masks. At that point, the government had said, well, you don't need to wear masks, you just need to social distance. Nobody knew anything about anything. Today, yesterday we had 174,000 confirmed cases in this country. Governors are running helter-skelter trying to figure out how to help their people. Governors and mayors and of towns who were saying this is much ado about nothing are now changing course. The hospitals are overfilled, and Thanksgiving is around the corner. And I am going to keep reiterating, because from the time Dr. Ayla got on these airways on March 10th of 2020, and she let us know right here on WURD Radio. We were the first person that learned that she started the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium because she was trying to get tests for our people, and what ended up as a direct result, she was getting the runaround, nothing was happening, and they kept telling our folks that they had to have a doctor's prescription or a doctor's note to get a test. And so she put her practice on hold and began testing in the city of Philadelphia with some other doctors and nurses and volunteers who have been helping her all along the way. I can't tell you how proud I am of the work that she has done. And so now she's at Esperanza right now until 4 p.m., from 1 to 4 p.m. She is Hunting Park and 5th Street. That's in North Philadelphia right now. She said that the line for testing goes around the block because people are afraid. The COVID-19 numbers have escalated through the roof. Dr. Fauci told us a long time ago it was going to be worse now than it was in the spring. She said, don't go to the market every single time. Just do one large shopping to decrease your exposure, and do not have anybody in your house for Thanksgiving that do not live with you. If you insist on doing that, she says, and I quite agree with her, because that's what I did with my youngest son, they have to take a test at least 5 days out from Thanksgiving, and they have to quarantine themselves in their house, which means not going out and being around all sorts of people, because we want to level this. If you want to make an appointment to have testing done at your church, I know True Life Fellowship wanted to do that. Please go to their website, www.blackcovid19consortium.com, and fill out the information or call their office. All of that is on their website. For the rest of this week, on Thursday from 4 to 7 p.m., they're at Sharon Baptist Church in West Philadelphia from 10 to 2. I'm sorry, Thursday from 4 to 7, they're at Sharon Baptist Church in West Philadelphia. On Friday, they're at Deliverance in North Philadelphia from 10 to 2 p.m. And on Saturday, they're at the Leocora Center from 11 to 4 p.m. I can't tell you all enough how important this is, so let's get it going, shall we? All right, Maurice, let me take a quick call before I have to go to break. How are you, sir?
Mother, I love you so much because you give the right information and you bring on the right people because of this. I wanted to suggest the simple things I break down to the young fellas around here. You know how everybody says put on a mask, right? I say, where's your gloves? People seem to forget about the gloves they need to have because they touch everything.
Yes.
They need to have on gloves. They need to have some eye protection. They need eye protection, too. And a lot of people, which I've noticed, when it's come time to count their money, they take their gloves off, and money is the big transfer of the disease.
Dirty.
So we got to tell people, you got to have your gloves. You go to the dollar store, they only $1, a few packs, you know, do something with that, you know. We got to tell each other, and we need to have, a lot of people don't like to do it, but we need to have celebrities or people that have a lot of internet followers to be on there pushing the message about the mask and the gloves. Sometimes you got to sell it like you sell chicken and pizza. You got to put a celebrity out there to say, this is what we do.
But they have been doing that, Maurice. The celebrities locally and nationally have been talking about this. They did it.
I'm not talking about the real popular ones. I'm talking about the ones that the kids listen to. That means like the social the social I'm trying to say internet people that follow these certain people around because they think they're hip and they're wild and they're loud. Those are the people that need to be putting the message out. For the young people, I mean, we see a celebrity. We know Denzel puts on one. We're going to put on one, but they might not put on one if you're 15, 16 years old for Denzel. Right. You're going to see who you see on the internet doing it, on TikTok and places like that. So I just want to throw my little bit in there because you don't need no help from me because you running this ship right.
I love you, Maurice. Thank you so much for calling in. Lots going on. We got to take a break. See you soon, okay? Maurice hung up again. Let me tell you, Mike, me and Maurice don't know how to say goodbye before he hangs up the phone. I'm going to have to get him. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD, 215-634-8065.
Did you know millennials make up
if you
the
are
largest
hearing
share?
the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we will be right back after these messages.
Share of the U.S. population. They are known for being tech-savvy, practicing mindfulness, and being socially and ethically conscious. But they are also on track to be in worse health than previous generations. Pitch your best ideas, Philly. You have the power to help shape how we address millennial health and mental health challenges in our beloved city. We'll connect you with our mentors and get you ready for a pitch competition with our judges. Visit economyleague.org/WellCity.
COVID-19 impacted a lot of things this year, including regular vaccination appointments. Vaccines help protect you and everyone around you, especially during flu season. Schedule an appointment with your healthcare provider today to make sure you and your children are vaccinated. Vaccines keep us safe, and they work. Skip the flu this year. Get your vaccination today. Let's stay protected together. For more information, visit health.pa.gov, paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Dietz & Watson has been making premium meats and artisan cheeses for over 80 years. And when it comes to stacking sandwiches and party platters, they've got something for everyone in the family, like maple honey turkey breast, American cheese, buffalo chicken, and more. So get to your local deli and taste 4 generations of family recipes. With Dietz & Watson on the table, you'll have everyone coming back for seconds and thirds. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing since 1939.
WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Many of us have heard this term before, but may not know what it really means. Compassionate living brings mindfulness and peace to the center of your daily life. Compassionate living can look like this. Number 1, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Number 2, choose to speak kindly to others, even when you're upset. Number 3, become a good listener and practice empathy at home and at work. We sometimes think in order to live with compassion, we have to become someone else. Not so. In fact, allowing peacefulness to be at the center of our daily interactions is something we can practice every day. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at wordradio.com.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on wordradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you're just joining us, we jumped right out the gate with Dr. Ayla Stanford. She is the woman that has been the doctor, the world-renowned pediatric surgeon, really, that has been giving us what we needed to learn about COVID-19 and what we should expect. And we have been following her guidelines over here in this house. I can tell you my husband and I have, and we've managed not to contract this virus up to this point because everything that she has told us to do, we have done it. Even with my sons visiting last week, they never took off their masks. We spent a lot of time, we did things outside instead of things inside the house. So it was just, and they only stayed for a few hours. So I didn't have anybody around that was, in my house for days at a time having dinner. If we sat and ate at a table, if we were more than 6 feet apart, the whole 9 yards. And if you're going to do this, you have to do it properly, right? And they both made sure that they were COVID-free before they came and popped up on us because they knew my husband and I have underlying issues. So, we're going to move right along because I'm waiting for Pastor. Listen, see. Reverend Dr. Alan E. Waller is the senior pastor of the Enon Tabernacle Church in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Pastor Waller, how are you, sir?
I am great. How are you?
I am so good. Listen, I always look forward to having our weekly conversations, because you and I, we talk about the things that matter in this city and in the state and nationally, and we have not had a chance to really talk since the elections and that it was called for President-elect Joe Biden. What do you have to give us today, sir?
Well, we're excited about that, but we have to recognize the work now really begins. Mm-hmm. We gotta stay involved, understand what's coming up next, and even interpret his foolishness now and understand what's behind it.
Okay.
The Republican Party understands that when he's dead, they're dead. And so they're keeping up his foolishness because there's a Senate race in Georgia and they need his people to show up. Mm-hmm. As soon as he concedes, as soon as he gives up this fight, his people are going back to the hills where they came from.
Right. And so, but right now, Pastor Waller, it doesn't look like he is willing to give up or concede in any way, shape, or form.
That's exactly right. And the reason that they're not pressing him is because they want his people because the balance of power depends on Georgia. And so all of our efforts now have to be to help elect Ossoff and Warnock. And there's something that we can do even from here. It's not like we're out of it. We can pay attention. We can give towards his campaign and stay involved and invested, because the next part of this is making sure that we have viable persons. We got another election coming up in 6 months. We got to start thinking about judges around here. And if we didn't learn anything else over these 4 years, how important judges are on the local, state, and national, federal level.
Yes. All right, I'm writing as you're talking because I like to give people a recap of what we discussed.
Yeah.
So we know the judges are coming up. We know the district attorney's election is coming up. Larry Krasner is up for re-election. And as the city controller, because you know I'm following what's going on.
That's right.
So the city controller's position is up for re-election too.
But you know, before we leave that, I do need to remind us, we need to take a hard, critical look at the exit polls. 3 out of 5 white people voted for Trump. That means that more than just Republicans voted for him. And we have to wrestle internally with the reality that 20%, I think it's actually 18% African-American men voted for him. And we have to wrestle with that. You know, the truth of the matter is, Trump appealed to people who feel disenfranchised across the board. And black men, on some level, have to wrestle with why some of us feel left out of the conversation. I do have some thoughts about that. And so we can't just throw a rock at the brothers, but we do have to help. We have to help them understand, because quite frankly, if you are a black man right now and you don't have the right language, you are not even allowed in the conversations internally in our own community. I mean, if you don't know how to talk about leaning in and intersectionality and have almost an elitist conversation, we tend not to make room for in our own community. Right. And so we have to talk about that as well as an internal conversation.
So I have some thoughts on why the brothers went over on that end too. And I agree with you. How do we get the elitist conversation to get to a place where they start to pull in and invite these brothers to the table, and to not only listen to them, but then to move towards solutions, because they're suffering and struggling on so many levels, right? It's nice when we can make it out and we can look and say, yes, I'm living in the suburbs, and yes, my children graduated from college. But the fact of the matter is, a great percentage of our brothers continue to struggle, while the sisters have been able to, you know, go to college and get the PhDs and all those other things. And we tend to, you know, and I have to be very mindful myself when I'm having these conversations. We tend to talk about the sisters and all the wonderful things that they're doing without really acknowledging the role that brothers have been dismissed from, right? So they were not able to play the part, and why so many of them weren't given the kind of education so that they would want to go to college. We see lots of them doing it now, you know, but there's still too many of them that are not there. And so the despair that's in the faces and the hearts of our brothers come out in angst. Right? How do we begin to now have the kinds of conversations that will allow these brothers to feel like they're a part of what we're talking about?
Well, I think, number one, what you're doing, you tend to have a conversation on this platform, and you'll have me, you'll have others. Everybody's allowed to speak when you're on. And so I think WURD is critical in this. And I think I have to challenge my language. You know, I'm one from the pulpit who will say the 21st century holds no place for uneducated African Americans. I push hard on getting people to college, and I need to make sure that my language is as celebratory of those who choose not college but choose the trade. And, you know, I had a wonderful conversation with some young adults, and the sisters were in the room talking about what kind of man that they're going to need or want in their life. And they were talking about, you know, master's degree and all that. And there was one brother in there, and he was a mechanic. And he just raised his hand. He said, now, I don't have a degree, but I work on cars. I think all of y'all drive cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I make $75,000 a year fixing these cars.
Mm-hmm.
But according to your standards, you wouldn't go out with me.
Yeah.
And he dropped the mic on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that all of us, first, those of us who have the mic, we got to make sure that we don't lean elitist, and I'm talking about myself.
Yes.
And that we also celebrate. I had Ryan Boyer on my Facebook Live last night talking about the wonderful stuff that Sam Staten district, the union is doing, and the $25 million facility they're building. And there's going to be a route for young men and women who want to go into the trades and get into the union. And we're going to have to celebrate that and make it okay and accessible. I mean, we need to remember that, Mount Airy was Mount Airy because a lot of black people who were blue collar were able to get into the middle class working in the factories in Philadelphia. There wasn't a bunch of elite people up there. There was, basic blue collar, hard working middle class families of a generation ago. And we're going to have to find out how we create that path in our city for that to happen without having a PhD.
Come on. And this is why I continue to have conversations with you week after week, because not only are we holding up the mirror to other people's faces, we're holding up the mirrors to ours too. And that is important in leadership at every single turn. So here we are. I am getting ready in the 2 o'clock hour to have a conversation with Sincere Harris, who was the Biden leader in Pennsylvania, black woman, 36 years old. There was an article, something done by KYW News, and they just kind of eliminated her from the conversation as if she wasn't there. And so today I am highlighting this strong young black woman who is doing amazing work. I talked to Ryan Boyer last week and spoke to Commissioner Sabir. He called in. We thanked them for the work that they've been doing. Excuse me. And so you're right. We have to look at the good things that are happening around us, which will encourage people to become more involved and motivated. I'm also having great conversation with WURD listeners who have a lot to say. Excuse me, Pastor Waller. I'm dry throat. It's this time of year. What roles can the average Philadelphia citizen play now, post-election? Well,
post-election, we have to stay connected in the conversation about what's going on in the local political scene. I want to encourage, there's a book, I forgot the author, but it's called Bowling Alone. And it examines why we have gotten away from volunteerism in our community, why people don't join organizations anymore. I would challenge everybody listening, decide what's your thing. I mean, my thing is the church, and I'm going to do my work from the position of pastor and in the church. Everybody needs to get in something. Your thing might be the fraternal system, or your thing might be a sorority, or your thing might be NAACP, OIC, Urban League. But if you are listening, you need to ask yourself, what group will I live out my cause with? Your thing might be in the mosque. I don't think we have room to have religious battles in this moment. Right. I know what I believe, and my pat answer is I want everybody in the city to be Christian and join Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church. Right. And that's what I'm working for. But the reality is everybody has to get where they are comfortable and where they have passion, and you can't do it alone. So connect with a group and begin to do what that group does to make Philadelphia better. That, I think, is an action step that everybody can take.
Yes, I so agree. All right, so here is my next question for you. Post-election, you're telling people to get into their thing, join a group, learn how to volunteer and work together to create what we need for the city that we need. COVID-19 is ripping everybody apart. I know they're sick and tired of my talking about it. I just had Dr. Ayla Stanford on. She's over at Esperanza now. The numbers have gone through the ceiling. Are you open? Did the city shut down? Did the state shut down the churches, or did you reopen your church, sir?
Well, I never closed the church, number one, but we're still worshiping virtually. So the city never closed my church. The pastor and the deacons did, because because we're
Right.
following the science.
Yes.
And no, we're not doing anything different because it's worse now than it was when I had it. Everybody needs to take this seriously. You need to not go out if you don't have to go out. You need to mask up and social distance if you do go out. And we got to ride this thing out and not complain about what it is. I mean, on some level, it's the national response, and that it's Trump's fault, not that it came here, but that we didn't handle it any better.
Right.
And then it is our fault because we allowed fatigue to cause us to begin to relax everything. And so we have to recognize that this is where we are right now. We got to fight it, and we have to do what we have to do in this moment. Now, the cold is going to help us because we generally don't like to be cold anyhow.
Yes, so we'll
inside.
stay in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're so
But
right.
I think it's real. And what we have to remember is, one of the things that the far right is touting is that there's a 99% rate of I'm looking for the word, but 99% of the people are not going to die from it. And that's true. But for me, I'm a Christian, and that means I take my look at this from Jesus. When he's had 100 sheep and lost one, he didn't celebrate and say, well, at least I got 99. He said, where's the one? So his actions were to care about the one. Most of us, if you get it, you're not going to die from it. However, somebody is, and it could be your grandmother, it could be your cousin. So we have to think about the one in this moment and not just about ourselves. And so right now, I've got to act like I might die or I might kill somebody if I get it.
Here's the thing, though, Pastor Waller, and that I think most people are not taking seriously. This is not the flu. So even though you may not die from it, the long-term effects. I had a show 2 weeks ago where we talked about the long-term effects. One woman had it in March. She's still not able to breathe properly. She's having all kinds of issues with her lungs, her kidney, her heart, this is the piece that the doctors keep saying, right? You may recover from this. 99% of you who get it may recover from it, but exactly what are you carrying in your bloodstream, right?
That's right.
What are the
That's
long-term effects of that? So I need people to be more mindful, not just about the folks that could die from this, but the long-term effects of those who get it and quote-unquote recover from it.
That's exactly right. We have to be concerned about what the long-term effects. One of the things that I have noticed about myself is that I get hoarse periodically for no reason. And I don't know where that has come from. I mean, I've been talking for a long time, but this is different. And while I had no symptoms, and that's mild and light, and but it's something that has been with me since then.
Yes.
And we just don't know. We don't know what this means for someone who is 30 to catch it, and then 3 years from now have a baby.
Come on.
We just don't know. And since we don't know, the same way we didn't know how much crack was going to have a residual effect on crack babies having babies, and the implications of our children and how they are when they were born to someone who was thrown out on crack. All of that, we just don't know. And since we don't know and haven't had the longitudinal studies, let's not play with it, and let's not take the chance.
All right. Thank you so, Lord. It's always such a pleasure talking to you. I will see you next Tuesday, sir. God willing, and the
All right.
rise. All right. Take it easy.
Take care.
That was all right. Bye-bye. That was Reverend Dr. Alan E. Waller, who is the senior pastor of the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church in Philadelphia. He said something that so resonated with me. When we're holding up the mirror to people's faces, we must first hold it up to ours. And so on behalf of all the brothers out here who are feeling like they're unheard and not given the same shot as the women around them, because quite frankly, black women have now gone on and are doing amazing things, please remember that we are here. Many of us are here to continue to speak, to talk to you, to listen to you, to try and support and help in any way that we possibly can. Because the fact of the matter is so many of you voted for the President of the United States, and it's because you're feeling unheard and undervalued, and I don't miss it, okay? You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. We will be right back after these messages.
Pico has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. If your heating and cooling system is more than 20 years old, it may be time for your contractor to replace it with a high-efficiency Energy Star certified model. You'll get a rebate from Pico and save on your monthly electric bill. You'll find a list of new heating and cooling system rebates at pico.com/rebates. Or you can call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE for all the details. Plus, find instant discounts on smart thermostats and more at pico.com/marketplace. There's free shipping on orders over $49.
Save the date. Friday, December 4th from 1 p.m. till 4 p.m. for the 5th annual WURD Empowerment Experience. And this year, the virtual and on-air event will be extra special as we celebrate the career of radio veteran Cody Anderson and discuss the importance of independent black media. For more details about the 2020 WURD Empowerment Experience or to RSVP, visit wordradio.com and stay tuned to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education." For all young people to succeed in Philadelphia public schools, they need adequate resources and materials. But not all students have the same access and opportunities they deserve. As Philadelphia public schools continue to operate with remote learning, we at WURD Radio want to do our part to help students have the resources they need to be successful. Please join us and our community partners, Global Citizen and the Cayuga Elementary School, by donating supplies online so students have the same supplies we would want for our own children. Go to globalcitizen365.org to make an online contribution of supplies.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on wordradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you are just joining us, you missed two great guests. The first one was Dr. Ayla Stanford from the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium. They are now testing in Esperanza. I have some time to talk to WURD listeners, so 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. They're testing at Esperanza in North Philadelphia right now. She's just amazing, Dr. Ayla. I can't say enough about her. And while some of you may not fully appreciate the value that she brings to the table right now, I must let you know. She said, don't get mad that your children can't go to school, wear your masks, no large gatherings, wash your hands, clean your surfaces. At Esperanza right now, the line is 90 minutes long before they even got there. 90 minutes before they got there, the line was around the block, right? So they're at Esperanza at Hunting Park and 5th Street until 4 p.m. today. On Thursday, they're at Sharon Baptist Church in West Philadelphia from 4 to 7 p.m. On Friday, they're at Deliverance in North Philadelphia. And on Saturday, Deliverance from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And on Saturday, they're at the Leah Cora Center from 11 to 4 p.m. If you would like to get your church tested, if you want to have a testing site where your church or your mosque or wherever you are is, you go to, I'm going to say, realconciergemedicine.com, and you will see the information for the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium there. Then I had a great conversation with Dr. Alan E. Waller, and we're talking about the fact that the elections are over, but the work has just begun. In the 2:20 p.m. hour, I'm going to have Sincere Sincere Harris on, who I cannot wait to talk to. I've had some conversation with her recently, and I'm excited to introduce her to the WURD listening audience. She was named the senior advisor for the Biden campaign in July of 2020, and it's the sister that helped to bring the votes home for Joe Biden in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. So this is good stuff. And I wrote an article about her, too, for the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, because she's a rising star that's 36 years old, very much behind the scenes, but totally undervalued, in my opinion. And so what do I do when that happens? I shine the lights, because we need to do the light. So Pastor Waller talked about all of that, and so we're going to move on. And let me talk to Miss Mary. Miss Mary, are you there?
Yes. Good afternoon, Andrea.
Good afternoon, Miss Mary. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I just wanted to let the people know that we cannot dismiss what Senator Lindsey Graham was interference with Georgia's election.
Yes. Ooh, there's an echo with you again, Miss Mary. Every time I talk to you, I hear this crazy echo.
Oh, it's not on my end, though. I don't have anything on. Do you still hear it?
Yeah, every single time you call, I hear that echo, and I don't know if it's something around you bouncing. So we'll figure it out. Don't worry about it, Miss Mary. I am glad you brought that up because I saw that on MSNBC this morning that he tried to interfere with Georgia's election, and then he's backpedaling. Let me ask you this, Miss Mary, because I love talking to you. Do you think that if they find that he was actually trying to interfere in Georgia's election, that will cost him something?
It's the cause is a conflict of interest with Senator Lindsey Graham. We have been providing him with military contracts for decades. This has always been a conflict of interest. He should have been on not only the Federal Bureau of Investigation's they should have been looking into him, and also the Security Exchange Commission and the CIA, because he has these military contracts. He's a billionaire by now, and he writes legislation basically to fund Israel. And now we're hearing about President Trump wants to go to war with Iran. It's a lot of senators that we have in place that have been on the government's radar for decades. And they need to make sure that they continue to look at Senator Graham. He should not even have contracts with the government. When you're going to write legislation to keep wars going, and you basically are a billionaire at this point by doing this, and also with Giuliani. He has security contracts with other countries. So we have to start looking at these people that are basically doing illegal things because they're questioning a lot of things that Giuliani has been coming out on national television stating about fraud regarding not only the states and cities with the election process, but never have provided us with information regarding the contracts that he have entered into. So it's all listed on the government website. Like I said, the Security Exchange Commission has this information, and also the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the CIA, and also the state. So they need to look into these individuals since Lindsey Graham came out charging the Secretary of State to manipulate the vote. That's fraud in itself. So if he's willing to do that, then he's willing to do anything.
So
Thank you, and have a good day.
You too, Miss Mary. You too. The interesting thing about Lindsey Graham, are you still there, Miss Mary? Miss Mary's gone. The interesting thing about Lindsey Graham was when all of that came out in the news that he was trying to influence the Georgia election, it made my husband and I immediately look at each other and say, so did he influence his, right? What happened when he was running against Jamie in his own election to remain senator, to retain his senatorial seat? There's so much going on here. I have to believe on some strange level that the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the CIA, and the SEC have already begun digging. But it's hard when they're hampered by the kind of administration that they have now. Now, please remember, there's still 60-something days left before there's a transition of power, and anything can happen in 64 days. One of the things we know about this current president is that he tells you what he's going to do before he does it. And so now we're hearing talks about doing something with Iran. If you start a war, sir, 64 days before you have to transfer power, all that's going to do is create all sorts of chaos, not just in the United States of America, but around the world. So we have to be very careful and pay attention. This has only just begun. Only just begun. I don't know what else we can say. Miss Mary is absolutely on point. She's clearly watching the same news I'm watching and reading the same things I'm reading. And so while we have a tangent on local politics here, we must pay attention to what's happening nationally and not worry so much about whether they're going to get on the Biden's team or what is happening that's going to impact us in such a way that we will not soon recover from it if we don't pay attention. So that's where we are. God bless Miss Mary. Gary said, I simply love Miss Mary. She's so extremely informative and on point. Very good. I'm telling you, Gary, she is. What about the 82% of black men who didn't vote for Trump? So this is Kendrick Talbot. He says, good afternoon, good Tuesday afternoon. Word family and mother was listening on TuneIn app, heard everything. What about the 82% of black men who didn't vote for Trump? The 77 million who didn't vote for 45. I know I sound like the prodigal son's brother, but I'm getting annoyed by this. Kendrick, call in and talk to mother. I have a little bit of time. Call in 215-634-8065. Listen, I am open to having the dialogue, and you're absolutely right. There are 82% of the brothers who did not vote for Donald Trump. And so you're right. It's like the prodigal son, right? We don't worry about the ones that voted. We're just concerned about the ones that didn't vote. And so Kendrick, call in to mother, okay? 215-634-8065, and you and I will talk about this right now. I want to read something quickly to you before I have to go. Billy Penn wrote an article that came out today at 11:13 a.m. Remember Anthony Voci, the chief homicide prosecutor that I was talking about on the air because he was involved in an incident with his motorcycle with a young woman that he claimed cut him off. And what he ended up doing was she was so frightened by him, he'd use his motorcycle to cut her off and flashed his badge and then had police show up at her house and impound her car and all sorts of things. It was such an abuse of privilege, according to the people that were on the air. Keir Bradford Gray, the chief defender for the Defenders Association, wrote an article about this. She was so annoyed and aggravated that this man was able to use his power to do the kinds of things that he was doing. And Detective Fisher, who used to work in Larry Krasner's office before he retired, he was the one that jumped on board and made sure that the woman's car was taken out of the impound lot, that she got out of prison. They actually had her locked up for what should have been a traffic ticket, if anything at all, right? And so there was conversation going on in the community about Larry Krasner's lack of response to this. And this morning, we see an article comes out that says District Attorney Larry Krasner has demoted his chief homicide prosecutor, Anthony Voci, at a time when murders in the city are soaring at a 3-decade record, according to a source close to the matter. The decision reportedly came down from Krasner himself. Reasons for the sudden leadership change have not been announced, though the veteran prosecutor landed in hot water recently over an alleged abuse of power. Assistant prosecutor Chelsea Lightsey is expected to take over as acting homicide chief effective immediately, according to the source. A spokesperson for the district attorney's office did not immediately return a request for comment. Voci, 57, has served 15 years with the district attorney's office over the last 3 decades, first in the early 1990s and under then district attorney Ron Castile, and later under his successor, district attorney Lynn Abraham. Krasner appointed Voci head of the homicide unit after taking office in 2018. So while this might not feel like a lot to a lot of people, to me, this is important that District Attorney Krasner picked up the mantle and did something about this. They may never say that it was because of this alleged abuse of power, but either way, having this man as the homicide prosecutor in the middle of what we saw happening with all the police reports that we saw taking place, then we knew something was off here. And so I'm glad that something was done to remove him from that post so that the people of the city can feel a little bit safer knowing that the folks that are prosecuting on their behalf will not abuse their power for something as simple as being cut off with his motorcycle while driving in the street. Lots of stuff, lots of inside stuff, you know, we get to hear as media people, and it's not good. It did not look good, and it didn't feel good to the people that are here. So I appreciate that at least this much has happened. Let me take a quick break and then I'll come back. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. I don't know why my voice is going. We will be right back after these messages.
Enterprise Exterminators, located 4943 Wayne Avenue, specializing in lantern flies, termites, bed bugs, fleas, mice, and roaches. Do-it-yourself kits are available. Call now, 215-849-7070.
Keeping you informed
As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get no-cost, barrier-free COVID-19 testing this week. These locations offer free flu shots and coronavirus testing. Tuesday, November 17th from 12 noon till 4 p.m. at Esperanza, 4261 North 5th Street. Thursday, November 19th from 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. at Sharon Baptist Church, 3955 Conshohocken Avenue. Friday, November 20th from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. at Deliverance Evangelistic Church, 2001 West Lehigh Avenue. And Saturday, November 21st from 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. at the Leah Chorus Center, 1776 North Broad Street. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Step by Step Home Care Professionals is one of Philadelphia's fastest growing Black-owned home care employers, and they are hiring. If you are a caring, nurturing, and compassionate person who enjoys helping people in need, Step by Step Home Care Professionals is looking to hire you. Go to sbshome.care to complete an employment application. That's sbshome.care or call 610-321-3108 for more information and ask for Monet. Step by Step Home Care Professionals is hiring today.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. I think you better call Tyrone. Call him. Hi, Tyrone. How are you, sweetie?
I'm good, Mother. How are you?
My voice is trying to kick my behind today, but we're not allowing it to happen. What's going on, sir?
Oh, peace and blessings and much love and respect to my WURD family. But I was calling to kind of piggyback on Reverend Waller because right now, the battles that we are confronted with, everybody's got to, get on board. And I think he made a great point where he said that everyone can choose their lane. We don't have to, be a part of this or be a part of that, but you got to be a part of something.
Yes.
And there's so many different ways and so many different people, involved in the struggle. All you got to do is figure out where you fit. And once you figure out where you fit, do what you can to improve who you are and, look at whatever resources that you can, contribute or whatever resources you can help generate to make your portion or make wherever you are, your part, to be the best it can be. Because right now, everybody got to be in this.
Absolutely.
And that's why I wanted to, just call and thank Reverend Wallace for that comment, and always got to give you your accolades because you were sure enough keeping folks on point, and we just thank you for that.
And let me tell you something, Tyrone. We don't have time to play. All of us need to hold the mirrors up to our faces. I asked Kenrick to call in, and I see that he's on the line because he's absolutely right. I care so much about our brothers. And what we have done is we pay attention to the few. He's absolutely right, holding the mirror up to our faces, right? We pay attention to the few who we think need our support and our help because they're doing certain things that may not sit well with us. But like Pastor Wallace says, we have to let go of some of the elitist conversations that we're having so that we can reach more people at all times, And so I'm holding the mirror up to my own face today. I am. I can't wait to talk to him. So I'm throwing you off the phone so I can have a conversation with my brother, okay?
Thank you, Mother. Always love you.
Love you, Tyrone. Love you. Bye. All right, Kenrick, are you there?
Good afternoon, Mother.
How are you? It's so good to hear your voice. How are you, man?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. So let's talk. It's just you and me, right? I don't have anybody in front of me for the next 20 minutes. Tell the WURD listening audience what you said to me on the Facebook page that had me asking you to call in.
I don't know.
Come on, man. You got some time. Usually I'm rushing people off the line. Let's talk.
Okay.
Come on. It's just me and you talking. Let's talk.
Okay. Now, I agree with everything that was said concerning the black men who are feel disenfranchised and disenchanted and opted to vote for Donald Trump for some reason. I mean, I probably share most of their frustrations, but I didn't vote for Trump. So, because I grew up in New Jersey, and I'm seeing his previous ventures, be it Atlantic City or with Trump University, and the USFL. Now I'm really going back. They all crashed and burned, a lot like his presidency is. So I could never vote for him. But I understand why they would. So, but why so much focus on the 18% when there was 82% of us who didn't vote for him, either by voting for Biden, Harris, or voting for some other party, or not voting at all. And one thing I didn't mention, there was a higher percentage of Asian men, a higher percentage of Latino men, and this was really hilarious when I heard this one, a higher percentage of gay men voted for Trump than the 18% of black men. So I think all things considered, we're still in bad shape, and we need, and I agree with Reverend Waller, we all need to find a lane that we could drive down and start working on. So
let me say this to you. I will not dare try to speak for anyone else, but from my own perspective, let me just say I'm sorry. I'm sorry because I apologize, because I was very guilty of that, right? I didn't pay attention to the 82% that actually voted for someone else or another party or somewhere else. We just focused on the 18% because I got caught up in the melee of why would anyone, vote for someone who didn't have their best interest at heart. And the fact of the matter is, for far too long, neither party has had the best interest of black people and brown people at heart, right? And so the people who actually spent the time, even though they didn't like some of what they are going through and witnessing, and they understood what was happening was not cool, held their nostrils and voted in another way because they felt like, for lack of a better expression, the lesser of two evils is what we're going to have to deal with now, right? So the goal then, Kenrick, I believe, is to find ways to align ourselves with the brothers, the ones that voted and the ones that didn't vote, right? Because in my mind's eye, and this is again Andrea talking, you all have had to sacrifice so much in this country. The incarceration rates were out of control. That mostly impacted black and brown men. and it really starts in schools. I'm going to keep saying this because I've seen this over and again. We start putting our black and brown boys in school, in the system, from the time they're 5 and 6 year olds, when the teachers are calling the cops on them, and by the time they get to middle school, they have a record, quote unquote, with the teachers, so that by the time they sneeze, the cops are being called to haul them out the door, and then they're caught up in a vicious system that is hard for them to get out of, right? Because it impacts all areas of their lives. The crack epidemic that impacted the black and brown families at such an alarming rate. The fact of the matter is, black and brown girls, even though we're not treated well in many respects, are treated a little bit better in schools and are more palpable for the teachers that usually come in front of them in schools. And so we were able to access the college degrees at a higher rate than our brothers, right?
Yeah.
And so, like Pastor Waller has been saying, Kenrick, you know, in a recent conversation, sisters, I need a brother. Listen, I've had to gather so many edges of sisters who, he needs to be 6'4", he needs to make $400,000 a year, he needs to drive a BMW 750i, he needs to have a washboard stomach, and I'm like, sis, come on. Well, after all, I have a master's degree and a PhD, but the fact of the matter is, plumbers make $65 to $75 an hour.
They
right?
do pretty good.
Right? And so there's nothing wrong with anyone who works hard and works hard with their hands. If you saw, we laugh and talk about this all the time, but I am taller than my husband, right? He's a total nerd. I'm a total diva. Like, if imagine if I had said something simple like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with him because he's not my height. I can't deal with him because we don't have this in common. I can't deal with him because he wears pale colors and he doesn't drive a BMW. Imagine if I was that shallow, right? And that's the conversation that I want to have with our sisters around. Please see our brothers for the value they bring to the table, and not as a showcase piece, a chess piece for you to put in front of your girlfriends to say, look at how handsome my man is. Because the fact of the matter is, a man that spends more time in the mirror than a woman is someone that I don't want nothing to do with, right? So, hey, let's just talk about it and be about it. So on behalf of those of us who are really, we mean well, but sometimes we miss the mark, please accept our apologies, okay? And I will make sure that moving forward, I will continue to have conversations, not just about the 18% who are just angry and frustrated and not dealing with the system, but of the 82% that continue to fight within the system.
Absolutely.
All right. You feel better now, Mr. Kenrick?
Oh, I'm fine. I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
Mention that. So.
All right. Well, now we've got that all together. Huh?
Great show as always.
Oh, thank you, sir. You keep watching, okay?
I will.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, Lord, it's always something. But I'm glad he called me out on that on Facebook so we could talk about it. I am always willing to have good conversations with people. We can agree to disagree, but when I am wrong, when I see where I missed the mark or could have said or done something a little differently, I have no issues with apologizing, and he's absolutely right. We focus so much on the 18% that voted for Donald Trump in the elections, we forgot about the 82% of the brothers that are out here still working hard, still trying to make a way, still loving on their partners, still doing all the good things that black men are doing that we just don't ever really fully talk about, which is why, and I'm looking at his face, he's in Jersey, and I can't remember his name, he's a Kappa. I love him to pieces. I watch him, the way he takes care of his family, and he writes these amazing posts on Facebook, Elmani Viney. And it's someone that I'd love to have on as a regular contributor because he's a history buff and really knows the history of the country and our people, a brother who is just all about family and life, and wrote a post recently, some weeks ago, that says he's so sick and tired of hearing about brothers who are not doing the right things, but what about all the brothers that are doing the right things? Something very similar to what Kenrick said, right? Brothers that are out here volunteering all the time, helping children to writing curriculum, helping children to write college letters so that they can go to college, helping to lift their communities up and standing in the gap and making sure that they're doing what's right for their sisters. Those brothers need to be highlighted and lifted up too. So, all right, I'm going to move on for a little bit. Let's see. This is interesting, and I know you all, we talked a lot about the elections, and we're going to keep talking about the elections until we can't talk about the elections anymore. And quite frankly, that's going to go on for a little while. The Washington Post, Democracy Dies in Darkness, says, this was written by Paulina Villegas yesterday at 5:22 p.m. So that was November 16th. South Dakota nurse says that many patients deny the coronavirus exists right up until they die. Lord have mercy. Jody Doring, an emergency room nurse in South Dakota, was overwhelmed Saturday night. Her patients were dying of COVID-19, yet were still in denial about the pandemic's existence. It's like a horror movie that never ends, Doring wrote on Twitter. Her anxiety and despair are shared by many healthcare workers who are facing a dramatic surge in COVID-19 patients. But some frontline workers, like Doring, also face the emotional toll of treating patients who, despite being severely ill, are reluctant to acknowledge that they have been infected with a virus that President Trump has said will simply disappear. Doring said she has COVID-19 patients who need 100% oxygen breathing assistance and who will also swear they don't have the illness that has ended the lives of nearly 250,000 people in the United States since February. I think the hardest thing to watch is that people are still looking for something else and a magic answer, and they do not want to believe COVID is real, Doring told CNN in an interview on Monday. There is something called cognitive dissonance, and this is why I don't argue with people when they believe what they believe. There are some folks that, despite all the facts to the contrary, will absolutely believe the thing that is not right, because that's just what they want to believe. And when they get to that place, there's nothing you can do. But if you're dying from an infection that they tell you that you have, and you still believe you don't have the infection up until the minute you die, that's past cognitive dissonance. I don't even know what to call that. Their last dying words are usually, "This can't be happening. It's not real," she said, adding that some patients prefer to believe that they have pneumonia or other diseases rather than COVID-19, despite seeing their positive test results. It's insane. Insanity. Doring's weekend tweets went viral and prompted reaction from residents, healthcare workers, and local officials. COVID is amplifying the feeling of frustration and helplessness our frontline healthcare workers are experiencing. Brookings, South Dakota City Council member Nick Wendell wrote on Twitter, "We are in the midst of the storm right now. When we see our way through to the other side, the accumulated grief of healthcare workers in our state will be among the debris." Look out for the folks, and I've seen some on my social media page, like Jody Austin, who says that she continues to see people partying without their masks. They end up in the emergency room. She's a nurse, and in fact, I think she's going to be on a call with me next week on another radio show. She sees the fallout from all of this, and people continue to say that this virus does not exist, or it can impact somebody else except them, or 99% of the people still live with this, but they don't realize that the long-term effects can be absolutely devastating. And so we have to think about these things and really, I need to do a show on what is it that causes people to know that they can die from something, to know that their family members are dying, to see that the country is shutting down because the virus can run rampant and wipe out large segments of the population, and they're okay because it's not them. I need to talk to folks like that who just don't believe that this is happening or that it should be happening. Then I want to, and Reuters, politics, written by Lisa Gurion and Reed Levinson. This was written today. A special report. A cop shoots a black man and a police union flexes its muscle. In Rochester, New York. By the time Officer Joseph Ferrigno shot a black man from behind, court records show the Rochester cop had drawn at least 23 misconduct complaints in nearly 9 years on the force. One came from a woman who said Ferrigno, a burly hockey player, slammed her to the ground and broke one of her ribs. Another was from a one-legged man dumped from his wheelchair at a bus stop and roughed up by Ferrigno and 2 other officers. Through it all, the Rochester Police Department and the Locust Club, the local police union, stood by Ferrigno. By his own account, the officer never once was disciplined for using excessive force. Then came April 1st, 2016, when Ferrigno, alone in his squad car on a chilly, moonless night, made the most fateful decision of his career. 2 hours into his shift, Ferrigno spotted a Chevrolet Impala the same model driven by a black man suspected of threatening a woman with a gun a few days before. Without turning on his overhead lights or siren, Ferrigno followed for a few blocks, then watched as the driver backed into a driveway on a residential street. The officer pulled in front of the driveway, flipped on his cruiser's spotlight, and trained it on the Impala. He saw two black men inside. Ferrigno drew his Glock handgun, jumped out, and shouted, "Stay in the car." He later told detectives in a sworn statement. Sylvan Simmons, the passenger in the Impala, remembers the moment differently. He heard no warning, he told Reuters. Blinded by the spotlight, he couldn't make out anything about the car blocking the narrow driveway. Simmons, a 34-year-old equipment delivery man, wasn't the man wanted by police, nor was the car's driver, who lived next door. The two later explained they were coming home from a trip to the store. As Simmons stepped from the Impala and squinted into the spotlight, he told Reuters he was terrified by the silhouette that emerged, a large figure charging toward him, gun in hand. In a neighborhood where gunplay is common, Simmons turned and ran toward the back door of the house where he lived with his girlfriend and their 3 boys. Ferrigno, 33, had been on the lookout for a man driving an Impala. Even so, the cop ran past the driver, pursuing Simmons into the darkness. Suddenly, Ferrigno told detectives he saw a white flash and heard a loud bang. Simmons was shooting at me, the officer said, and the fear came over me that he was going to continue until he got me. Ferrigno fired 4 shots, hitting Simmons 3 times in his back. Now, how was he firing shots at you when you've shot him in the back? His buttock and his right thigh. A second officer arrived, and the two approached the black man bleeding in the grass. There, Ferrigno later told detectives he spotted something, the suspect's on the ground next to him. The suspect's gun on the ground next to him. Simmons later said that he hadn't fired a gun and didn't even own one. This is a conversation that we have all too often in our black communities. Cops swarmed the scenes. At least 4, including the detective who led the investigation into Simmons, held official positions in the police union. Also quick to arrive was the union's boss, Locust Club President Michael Mazzeo. Before leaving the scene, Ferrigno asked for 2 things, a lawyer and the union rep. The officer who told detectives that he was shaking and still in a state of shock was driven to the station and later sent home. Simmons, stripped naked by paramedics treating his wounds, was handcuffed and loaded into an ambulance. Although Simmons was the only one who took 3 bullets, Ferrigno is listed as the victim in at least 65 police reports. This is why we talk about police reform in this country and why it is so necessary. No one's talking about defunding the police. Don't go anywhere and say that Mova said anything about defunding a police department. What we're talking about is police reform. It is absolutely necessary. This story that I just read from Reuters that happened in Rochester, New York, could have happened anywhere, and in fact, it happens everywhere around this country. It happens to young boys who are arbitrarily stopped by police and then lied. That there's a lie saying that they had drugs in the car. There's been drugs and guns, all sorts of things. This man didn't have a gun, had never shot one, but somehow a gun miraculously appeared beside him in the grass because this police officer said he was fearing for his life. Those conversations, the policies and procedures that we're now operating on is going to have to change if we're going to get life better in this United States of America. I'm also going to go further and say this, and I'm looking right in the mirror as I say it, in the camera as I say it. There is going to come a time when the policies are going to change. Congress has already written vociferous law change as it applies to police departments and unions in this country. When that law is passed, not if, when that law is passed, lots and lots of police officers are going to quit their jobs and move on to something else. I say if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. But quite frankly, the lives of too many are at stake. You all know who the bad police officers are in your departments. Some of you are exceedingly good. Some of you are doing amazing work. And I'm not just saying that to blow sunshine because I've worked with you for 20-something years. So I understand what is at stake here. I also understand that you're afraid to speak up because you think, not think, you know, because when you speak up, you are targeted, you're given the horrible shift. They don't show up when you call for a radio call, the whole 9 yards. So that blue line, that blue code of conduct absolutely exists. And so life is about to change, and not a moment too soon. when it applies to police departments around this country. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is a number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we will be right back after these messages.
Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. For testing hours and more information, visit jeffersonhealth.org/community testing.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
The people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour work day, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. I am so excited to have a conversation with our next guest. But before I take her, let me talk to Greg from East Falls. Hi, Greg. How are you?
Yeah, how you doing there?
I'm good, sir. What can I do for you?
Yeah, I want to touch on a couple of things that I heard you talk about. I'm a retired law enforcement corrections officer, and that's the worst thing that can happen. A woke black man who happens to understand the training of a law enforcement person and who recognizes that they're black first. So it's time that we come out and really talk about what they are saying that they can't control. This police brutality can happen. And I'm going to say this. I blame the black police officer. And let me tell you why I say that. And I know all this stuff about there's some good ones and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in general. Because what goes on in our community will not go on in their community because the white police officers won't allow it. Yes. You're not going to go up there as a black officer having 24 conduct and whatever it is, and that captain not get told.
Right.
Now, in the structure of in a military type structure, which is the police officers, corrections officers, it's all uniformly. That chain of command is very important.
Yes.
And the captains, mainly the sergeants, the signing sergeants, are the most important people because they do job assignments, all of that, and they'll have you walking a block, if they want to, or not, or affect your overtime. There's two issues that I believe that it's time to really affect. Like I said, I put it on the black officers to say we're not going to tolerate you doing that in our community. Do your job, but we're not going to tolerate abuse, and everybody knows the difference, what that is. The other thing is this. It is time. When I was the president of the Philadelphia chapter of the National Action Network in Philadelphia, we were the first group that targeted the FOP in a demonstration at Broad and Spring Garden when their office was there. What has to happen, in my view, we have to start looking at filing lawsuits. Now, I know that they're not the employer, meaning the unions.
Right.
But what they do is they encourage, they actually tell them what to do, and they follow that instruction. So they need to start being subject to lawsuits. We need to start asking our legislators, like they asked Martina White, who was clearly a
GOP supporter, we need to have our legislators in the state, the ones, that understand our issues, to start developing policies that targets the unions and that targets the police officers personally themselves. Because as a corrections officer, retired corrections officer, if we were to do something wrong outside of the policy, what would happen is, and if you violate the policy, the Department of Corrections won't defend you. You can then be sued. You actually can be sued personally, and we got to start doing that to begin to attack. This can be done. But the question is it the will to do it?
Well, the will is there. The will is finally there. Congress wrote, and I can't remember the name of the act, but man, it goes in. It has incredible teeth, and it's languishing in the Senate. So I believe that if we win these 2 Senate races in Georgia, which is why everything hinges upon this, that act will go through, and life will shift for every police department in this country moving forward. I agree. It's time. The time has come. And we have to, the ones that are in there that are making it horrible for the ones that are doing their great jobs, it's time to weed them out. It's time. Absolutely time. So I agree.
Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. You have a good one, okay?
Good day. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to the WURD listeners, if you have not heard her voice before, Sincere Elise Harris, who was named the senior advisor for the Biden campaign in July 2020. Previously, she served as executive director for the Pennsylvania Democratic Party from October 2015 until July of this year. There, she led the Pennsylvania Democratic Party through an historic period of transformation. In the post-Trump era, PA Democrats have picked up big victories, including 5 congressional seats, historic statewide re-election wins for both Senator Casey and Governor Wolf, double-digit net gains in the state legislatures, and wrested control away from the GOP for the first time in decades in key counties. Before that, Sincere served as the Pennsylvania staff for President Obama's 2012 re-election campaign as Southeast political director and then deputy statewide political director on Governor Wolf's 2014 campaign, then as the deputy director of the Wolf Inaugural Committee and in the Wolf's Administrative Office of Legislative Affairs. Harris is a native Philadelphian and a Temple University graduate. To you. Ha! Sincere, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Girl, you are 36 years old and taking no prisoners. I'm so excited to talk to you. And you're a sister. And you have been quietly doing all of this work in the background. And so, you know how I became aware of you? You ready for this?
Uh-oh.
Uh-huh. Let me just tell you, because, Mother. They call me Mother on this radio show. So, last Saturday, I just happened to see Sharena. Sharena tagged me in something, and I looked, and Ryan Boyer was on a tear about the fact that there was something done by KYW News, and they gave you no play. Didn't act like you wasn't a part of it, and he was madder than fish grease. So Sharena tagged me, and I said, send the sister my way. What is the problem? Send her my way. So I don't know who you are, right? I'm just thinking you're a sister that did a few things. I start reading your bio, and I fell clean up my seat. You're 36 years old. So tell the people, because, tell the people, Sincere, how did you get involved in this process to the place where you're now doing the kinds of things that you're doing, that you have led Pennsylvania to massive victories everywhere, and you did it behind the scenes. How did you get started in all of this?
Well, it's actually a crazy story. Thank you for having me first.
You're quite welcome.
It's an honor. As you alluded to, I actually did my first campaign in 2012, but I actually didn't plan to work in politics professionally. I just was passionate about doing it on a volunteer basis. I was raised.
How old were you then? If you were in 2012, how old were you then?
I was 27.
Young people. I have such a passion for you all. So you were 27. Were you taken seriously as you were working on that first campaign?
No, because I hadn't worked in politics. I had worked for Verizon Wireless. And like I said, I just had done it in a volunteer capacity. And it just hit me one day that this is what I was passionate about and I should make a career of it. And I decided to quit my job and volunteer for a few months just to get my foot in the door with hoping that, you know, one thing would lead to another and I would actually, you know, get paid to do the work. And it did. I met a young man named Ova Canodal. I met Ryan Boyer that first year. Folks who have been mentors to me throughout this process and have always encouraged me to not just think that I could do bigger things, but even when I was really skeptical of myself. Like I said, I grew up, I think I mentioned this, that, you know, names like Marcus Garvey, Huey Newton, Malcolm X, they were everyday household names in my household. And I first got an interest in politics when I went to Girls High, and I took an AP Government and Politics class. And that's where I sort of realized that, for me, the next step in the fight and the struggle for civil rights, for fighting for our community, was being involved politically so that you're at the table when decisions are being made, so you're part of those decisions and not just the victim of decisions being made around you, at you.
Mm-hmm. And you were how old when you decided that?
27.
I can't. Sincere, when I tell you when COVID is over, I have a list of people that I want to meet. You're at the top of that list, honey. You're 27. Okay. So you found mentors. So you're talking about things that I've told people all the time. If you want to move ahead, it is just not enough to dream. You found mentors to help you in the process. You volunteered, right? So you started with your first campaign in 2012. Then what happened?
Well, campaign life is not for the faint of heart. You often go through periods where you're not employed. It's a rush. You're really busy. You're doing 19 things at once, and then one day November comes and the election's over, and everyone's trying to find their next job. And if you're not someone higher on the totem pole, it's rare, and especially for a re-election campaign where you talk about, the presidency. I knew there were going to be no jobs in D.C., and I actually didn't want to do that. I've always been passionate about Philly. I'm a Philly girl at heart. I care about my city, and I wanted to see change here. And that's actually one of the things why I first originally got interested in politics. I'm a product of Philadelphia Public Schools, and I learned early on what that fight looked like fighting Harrisburg from a city perspective. So I did some nonprofit work for a bit, and then early on in 2013, gearing up for the 2014 gubernatorial race, when those mentors came to me and said, listen, there's this guy from York County, you never heard of him, but I think you'll like him. And I'd actually already gotten a job to do finance for a different gubernatorial candidate, and who was at that point thought to be the favorite. There were sort of two favorites in that race, and Tom Wolf was not one of them. But one day he came to Philly. I met him, and he started talking about, tax and gas companies to pay for Philly schools. And I was like, what? This is my guy. And once again, my parents thought I was crazy. I sort of stopped the trajectory I was on and said, you know what, I'm going to go all in for this guy from York County, which is a county I never heard of, let alone been able to find it on the map in PA. And he had faith and trust in me and actually really empowered me as the Southeast political director. And then after the primary, and we won all 67 counties,
wow.
He made me the statewide political director, deputy political director under OB. And that was that. And he actually, he gave me a number of opportunities to choose from going into the administration. And I wanted to learn Harrisburg because I felt like that's where decisions were going to be made. And so I went into the Office of Legislative Affairs, and it was a whole different world. Working in Harrisburg you run into people who, I never will forget my first policy meeting with a number of senators and state senators and state representatives, and the governor had convened everyone, and he sort of went around the room and said, tell me about your district. What are your constituents dealing with? And I never will forget this one senator said, a common theme was the opioid crisis. And I remember thinking, wow, it was new for me at that time because drugs had run rampant in our communities and nobody acted like it was a big deal. It was always pull yourself up from your bootstraps. So now I'm hearing everybody talking about, opioid crises and people becoming addicted and it being a health crisis. And this senator said, you know, it's really ravaging our communities. And I look and I see my neighbor who's addicted, and, you know, he's a normal, everyday, regular American, blonde hair, blue eyed. And I was the only person of color in the room. I was the only woman of color to boot. And I thought, wow. So, like, your definition of normal American is
blonde hair,
blue eyes. So we don't even register. And if you had told that man in that moment, you know, you just said something low-key racist or that you're probably prejudiced, he would probably fight you tooth and nail, argue you down, because they don't even look at things in the same perspective. It never even crosses their mind that while folks have been struggling with drug epidemics for decades, it was all when it was a brown and black problem, it was a personal responsibility issue. And now that the person affected is blonde hair and blue-eyed, a normal, quote-unquote, everyday American, now it's a problem we got to tackle. Yeah. So I was working with that portfolio, trying to get the governor's agenda passed, or trying to help. By no means was it an effort that I did by myself, obviously. And then the party at that point was in a state of, honestly, just turmoil. There had been friction through the last election, and the party was, the state party that is, was a shell of itself. And they were trying to rebuild. Generally speaking, the governor is seen as sort of the leader of the state party, like the president is seen as the leader of, in our instance, we're Democrats, the DNC. And I first was asked would I go over to the party, and I said no. I hadn't thought of myself as just being a party person. I care about policy. I care about affecting change in my community, but I didn't think of myself as like a Democrat first. So I was a Democrat. That just wasn't my focus. And then probably another 2 months of sitting across from Republicans who, you know, were in seats that the governor had won or were liberal-leaning or moderate-leaning districts that I felt like, you know, if we won this, we being the last gubernatorial campaign, if Governor Wolf won this district by 60%, there should be a Democrat sitting in your seat. So I don't have to sit here and explain why we need a fair funding formula for Philly schools. And so I revisited that conversation and said, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go over to the party. We got to get some of these folks out of here. And that's what I did, and that's what I signed up for. And then 2016 happened, and we were all shell-shocked. And we just had to build from scratch. When I took over the state party, there were only 2 full-time employees. And, you know, when I took a leave in the summer, we had built it up to, at that point, 20 employees who were in the process of
Wait a minute.
building the
Stop,
coordinated
Sincere.
campaign.
Stop, Sincere. Did you say you took over the state party?
Yes, I was the executive director of the state Pennsylvania Democratic Party. Yeah.
How old were you then?
Well, at that point, I was 30, so a little older. 30 going on 31.
Wow.
And and then we won. We actually won smaller victories in 2017, but 2018 was really a big year for us. We won the special election Connor Lamb's district. I personally went out there in Allegheny County, right outside of Pittsburgh, to knock some doors. We elected the Fab Four for the first time, had 4 women to represent Pennsylvania in Congress, and flipped 2 congressional seats there. We flipped 14 state House seats and 5, and then ended up being a 6th state Senate seat in the special election going into early 2019. And then last November, we finally cracked the code on the suburbs. I mean, you talk about Delaware County, which had been Republican since the Civil War, flipping that county, flipping Bucks finally, and flipping Chester County. So now that Philly and all 4 Collar counties going into what we knew was going to be a crucial year of 2020. So we didn't have those in Republican hands, because we see what Republicans do when they control the levers of government. And we knew with Donald Trump at the top, we couldn't have key Democratic areas surrounding Philly in Republican control where they could, you know, be up to their hijinks and shenanigans. So that was sort of the icing on the cake going into 2020.
So let me see if I got this straight, because I have to take a break. You took a state party, the state Democratic Party, which was a shell of itself, and with all the friction that was going on there in 2016, and I know because I was one of the people sitting there going, you all better do something because black women are coming for you. And I remember when they appointed you, but I didn't realize it was you at the time, right? And then with just 2 people, to all the people that you had there, then you went out of that role to work on the Biden campaign. And then you've created so much. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back, and I have a couple of questions for you, because I want people to learn what leadership and what grit looks like behind the scenes. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. We will be right back after these messages.
Buying something from a dealer just sounds a bit, well, put it like this. My cousin Ray Ray got arrested for buying something from a dealer. So why would you want to buy your car from a dealer? Hi, everybody. This is Nick inviting you to buy your next car from Jerry over at Cardex. See, they're not dealers. They're like a car concierge service. They design a car around you. Almost any make. If it's not on the lot, they'll go out and get it for you. So use my car concierge, where I've already bought 4 cars. Cardex at 116 East Glenside Avenue in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Check them out online at cardexinc.com. Or call Cardex at 215-886-3230.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy. A couple wants to get married during this pandemic time. They've had spiritual counseling, guidance from their families, and they feel ready. Well, the therapist says, just be wise about your health and the health of your family and your guests, and take it step by step.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you're just joining me, I have on the line a 36-year-old, and I'm going to keep saying her age, who jumped into politics at the age of 27, Sincere Elise Harris, who was named the senior advisor for the Biden campaign in July 2020. She is the sister who behind the scenes has literally turned the Democratic Party inside out with the help of a team of people, and she quietly did it, right? And she's right. Delaware County was Republican since Jesus was a boy. And I watched Delaware County flip to Democrats, and then Bucks County, and then Chester County. This brilliant young lady has been behind the scenes doing the work and really not asking for anything in return beyond just making sure that things happen to serve the people that she cares about. She is from Philadelphia, went to Girls High, and graduated from Temple University. To you. And so, Sincere, welcome back to, I wrote a piece about you for the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, and I have to let you know that Catherine Hicks was so excited that it was you, because I don't really tell people who I'm writing about until, I said this is what I have lined up. But I find you to be so intriguing because there's some key things that you did. One was nobody really knew who you were unless they knew you. Explain why you stood in the background while doing so much powerful work.
That's just me. I was always taught to, do the work, get the work done. Life is about more than you. I was raised with a strong background being rooted in your community, caring about your community. It's bigger than just the individual. And I never really thought out the limelight. It honestly makes me a little uncomfortable. I'm a little nervous right now. And I've always felt like, the most important thing is that the work gets done and that the next generation after you is in a better position than your generation was, because that's what the generation before us did for me and for my contemporaries. And so I've never really thought about trying to stand up and take credit. And honestly, I feel like you can kind of get more done when people are, checking for you. Because in politics is a rough and tumble game. There's a lot of sharp elbows. There's always people jockeying for position. I found out about a year into my tenure as ED of the party, which I didn't think was a big deal that there were people, gunning for my job and things like that. And I guess it just comes along with the territory. But I've always just worked under the philosophy, do your work, keep your head down, and pay it forward.
You know why I asked you that? Because I knew that was something you followed, simply because that is exactly what I tell my mentees all the time. Sincere, for years, people kept saying, what do you do? She don't really have a job. Do you know how many times they called my mother Sincere and says, she don't have a job? because we were raised to do the work, keep your head down. By the time I lifted my head and folks realized, it was too late. You did exactly that, right? And that the work is bigger than just one person. So you knew what you had to do. And that's great advice. And I asked you that question because I want local leaders and national leaders and people who are aspiring to be leaders to understand that it's not about shaking hands and photo ops. The more you stay in the background, the better off you are, right? And you did it brilliantly. Wow. What advice, because I know I can't keep you on forever and a day, although I would like to. Let me say this. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, where do you expect to go from here? What is your goal? What are you dreaming of doing from here?
Everyone asks me that question, and that's something I've always been bad at, planning 2 steps ahead, especially in campaign life, campaign world, and politics. I've never really had a burning desire to work, on the Hill. I am passionate about politics because I do, as I said, think that's how you affect change. We've got a lot on the horizon in terms of right here in PA. So while I'd be open to, possibilities and people are having those conversations about, what the administration looks like, I care very much about Philly, about Pennsylvania. We did not have a great year down ballot. And there's going to be an open gubernatorial and senatorial race that even if I'm not on, I care about what that looks like. I care about the shape of the party and the direction that the party is going in. Finally, the party is starting to acknowledge Black women, the growing Latino community, and folks who had just been sort of taken for granted and patted on the head and expected to vote year after year after year. So, I am sort of torn between, I do this work because I do feel the end goal is to bring about policy change. So, at any point in a political operative's life, you have to decide whether you want to keep doing the campaign political side or go into government, and that's sort of at the precipice of where I am right now, trying to figure that out. And sometimes there's a nexus where you can do both. I was able to kind of do that under Governor Wolf's leadership in legislative affairs because it allowed me to still be political and still talk to legislators, but while advancing a policy agenda. So, that would probably be the perfect type of role that I'd be looking for the next phase.
Yeah. You are what I consider to be our local Stacey Abrams. Just getting the work done. I do. I say that with nothing other than meaning it from the core of me, because once I started looking you up and asking questions, I'm like, oh my gosh, she is really doing amazing work. And so let them keep ignoring you to their own detriment, because you are doing a yeoman's job and then some within the state at such a young age. What advice do you have for young people who want to get into politics or even just leadership? Let's just say not even politics, but leadership. What advice do you have for them? And what advice do you have for the older folks who refuse to let the baton go and pass the baton on to other people to run? I know I went there. This is mother.
So for the first question, I would say there are a few things. One, recognize that your route may not be the traditional route. I know you said 27, that was young, and then when I finally got on the Obama campaign, because I actually volunteered for the mayor's electoral race first, and they sort of gave me my first project at Temple. And then, but 27 on 28, that was looked at as older in politics, and I hadn't had a lot of campaign experience. And especially for Black and brown folks, when we're in college, we can't usually do internships. We usually have to work 1 or 2 jobs to just be able to afford books. So you don't come to the game with the same level of experience or opportunities, but you should not let that deter you from still putting your hat in the ring and still pushing for it. If I hadn't just said, what, F it, I'm just going to jump in, I'm passionate about this. I don't have the same level of experience as everybody else at my sort of entry point, but I know I can do this work, and I think I can out-hustle everybody else. And I know I can learn on the job, and that's exactly what I did. I went into cycles where I didn't quite know as much as the person next to me, but I learned it. I learned it real quick. I was a quick study. And so I would say just because you don't have the traditional path and the traditional experience, you don't let it deter you, because they don't let it deter them. They actually don't feel like they have to have every single qualification before they apply to do something. And then the second thing is, it sounds underrated and cliche and corny, but be nice. Like, you know, the people I learned from one of the first lessons I got from one of my mentors was, you know, be nice to the secretaries. Don't just be nice to the people who you think, you know, are quote-unquote important people, because not only is it the right thing to do, but those are the gatekeepers. Those are the people who actually, when you call,
know what's going on. There you go.
And exactly. So being nice pays off, and you never know when that intern you had working for you, that they may end up being your boss. And so you should just do that because you should be a nice person, but being nice does pay off, as corny and cliche as it sounds. And to the generation that won't pass the baton, which I will say, not quite my generation, but the mentors, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years older than me who started showing me the ropes, they were few and far between, because there was that sort of, I'm used to being the only Black or woman or Latino in this space, and I kind of like it that way. I will say you see less and less of that in millennials and our generation, younger, and Gen Z. It is much more of I'm proud to say that I got my foot in the door because of a young lady named Erin Wilson, who's the national political director, another Black girl from Philly, who's awesome, who fought for me, who pushed for me to be recognized and get in my position. And when I got in the campaign, there was a whole Black network of folks who were like, it's not just enough for me to be in the room. I'm going to bring you in the room. I'm going to bring you with me. We got to bring the folks behind them. And so that is something that is changing. And it's much better when you have a support system, because if you look at the groups who have thrived in America, whether they be Asian American, Jewish American, they had that support in that community. And it wasn't just a competition amongst each other. It was, okay, you've got this business and I've got this supply business and I've got this consumer business, and let's work together. And it was a network, and, you know, the whole it takes a village. It does take a village. We start off disadvantaged. So if one hand washes the other, you need to be willing to help those, because you never know when that good deed turns around and they're in a position to help you later on.
What was your major?
So later on, as we're starting to see, as the emerging electorate. And the folks are starting to recognize
the Black women. This is our decade. This is our decade. I have said it. I said it this morning. This is the decade of the Black woman, for all the work that we've been doing behind the scenes. What was your major in Temple?
Psychology, believe it or not.
What?
Yes.
And it probably worked very well for you, dealing with all these different personalities all around you. Sincere Harris, I am so proud and excited. Is this the first interview you've done on WURD?
Technically, yes. I do come, Senator Hughes has had me on his radio show, not in an interview, but just a talking tidbit a little bit.
Yes.
But as an interview by myself, yes.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, it is my honor to have been the first WURD radio host to have you on the air. And watch how everybody now try to come and clamor to get your conversation, because they're listening. There are people listening to this radio station from around the country, and you have stood in the gap and done the work quietly. I am proud to call you a Black woman and a sister, and I look forward to what you're going to do in the upcoming weeks, months, and years, young lady. And look for your article on Friday in the Philadelphia Sunday Sun. Congratulations.
Oh, I am honored. I don't really have the words, but thank you. I really appreciate that. And thank you to all your listeners, because, again, we got to support one another. We got to support Black-owned businesses. We got to support the institutions we have as a community.
Thank you so much. You enjoy the rest of your afternoon, okay?
You do the same. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Wow. What a great conversation that was. Sincere Elise Harris, who was named senior advisor for the Biden campaign in July 2020 and helped to turn the Democratic Party, which was a shell of itself, inside out and rebuilt it from scratch with just two people, to us leading the Democratic Party, leading in the Bucks, Delaware, Montgomery County, just all over the place, and just quietly doing the work. Is now 36 years old. Look for her. She's going to be someone to watch. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. This next guest that I have coming up is Angela Duckworth. We're going to talk about the Grit Lab. Everything that Sincere Harris spoke of is exactly what it takes to have grit and to do what you need to do to succeed. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we will be right back after these messages.
In Pennsylvania, it's now illegal to sell tobacco products, including cigarettes, cigars, chewing tobacco, vapes, or electronic cigarettes to anyone under 21. Stores can get fined up to $1,000 for selling tobacco to someone who is underage. Know the law. Check IDs. Post your retailer license. Make sure only employees have access to tobacco products and only sell tobacco products to customers aged 21 and older. Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Pennsylvania's COVID-19 mobile testing unit, KATE, will soon be coming to the area. Anyone who would like to be tested or receive free information and resources can attend a KATE tour stop. All services are first come, first serve, and no appointments or insurance are required. Many stops will also provide free flu shots. To learn when KATE will be making a stop near you, please visit KATE, C-A-T-E, mobileunit.com.
WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Many of us have heard this term before, but may not know what it really means. Compassionate living brings mindfulness and peace to the center of your daily life. Compassionate living can look like this. Number 1, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Number 2, choose to speak kindly to others, even when you're upset. Number 3, become a good listener and practice empathy at home and at work. We sometimes think in order to live with compassion, we have to become someone else. Not so. In fact, allowing peacefulness to be at the center of our daily interactions is something we can practice every day. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at WURDradio.com. Keeping you informed. As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get no-cost, barrier-free COVID-19 testing this week. These locations offer free flu shots and coronavirus testing. Tuesday, November 17th, from 12 noon till 4 p.m. at Esperanza, 4261 North 5th Street. Thursday, November 19th, from 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. at Sharon Baptist Church, 3955 Conshohocken Avenue. Friday, November 20th, from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. at Deliverance Evangelistic Church, 2001 West Lehigh Avenue. And Saturday, November 21st, from 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. at the Leah Chorus Center, 1776 North Broad Street. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. This is WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you're just joining us, I have now on the line with me Angela Duckworth, founder and CEO of Character Lab, a nonprofit whose mission is to advance scientific insights that help children thrive. Sounds like a whole lot of words, but we'll break it down for you. She's also a professor of psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, and in 2013 was named a MacArthur Fellow. Prior to her career in research, she was a math and science teacher at public schools in New York City. I am loving this. San Francisco and Philadelphia. Angela shares research-backed advice for parents and teachers in her tip of the week. Welcome to The Source, Ms. Duckworth. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am so good. So listen, when I heard that you were willing to be interviewed, I was super excited. First for the WURD listeners, and secondly for myself, because grit, grit is something that we talk about in abstract, and people don't really understand what it means. I just had a young lady on who was 36 years old who led the state Democratic Party Biden campaign and turned the entire state out. Right? Did such amazing work. Right, Angela?
Yeah.
Here's what she said. She said, I didn't have the qualifications. I didn't have half of the experience that other people had. What I had was determination. I was passionate about policy, and I outworked and outpaced everybody. So, hey, it led right into the conversation you and I are about to have today, right?
I love that. Also, I love that we didn't screw up the election for the rest of the country and the world. But yeah, no, I'm really happy. And, I was born in Philadelphia. I'm going to be in Philadelphia until my dying day. So I'm especially happy to be here at WURD. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, so listen, so for those who are listening and just meeting you for the first time, I've been following your work. So you are not unfamiliar to me, right? But describe the Grit Lab for the listening audience and what it entails for those who are in this lab.
So when I talk about grit, I talk about this characteristic I've identified to be like a common denominator among high achievers. And that includes, civic activists, but also, CEOs and athletes, musicians. It's a combination of passion and perseverance for really long-term goals. And I think the emphasis is on stamina. And it's not at all the same thing as talent, just as that, wonderful young leader that you were interviewing talked about. It's not being gifted. It's not like, oh, I already know everything that I'm supposed to know. But it really is a kind of tenacity over really, really long stretches, despite a lot of challenges. So that's what I mean by grit. And, we could talk more about, how do you teach it? How do you learn it? Etc.
So it is a combination of passion and perseverance and tenacity over long stretches. And I think that is what catches most people caught up because they let it go. It didn't work. I've done this for 2-3 years and it's not working for me. And so I'm letting it go. But when you're passionate enough about something, like I am about young people in education and have been doing it for decades, then you realize that the tenacity over long stretches lead to a sort of grit that continues to propel you into doing the work long after people think that you shouldn't be doing it. So
I would like to ask you, because I'm sure a lot of people are listening and they're thinking like, well, that sounds good, but how do you keep up your motivation, over such a long time, especially when you're talking about something like education, right? Or social justice. It's like, it's easy, actually. There's plenty of reasons to get discouraged. So as somebody who's pretty gritty, what would you say as like what keeps you motivated?
What keeps me motivated are the success stories, even if it's only one, right? Those keep me motivated because there are often times where I will go through long stretches and it's just disappointment after disappointment, or people just saying you can't do this or you shouldn't do this, or you're threatened or you're alienated in spaces. And what I constantly had to remind myself was, you are not in this about you, you're in this about the lives of others, and you're passionate about young people, so you must continue. So as a direct result of that, not only was I working with young people, then I got into implicit bias work and I've been training police officers and educators around the country, and doing it in a way where I will walk in and I'll say to mayors, I am not working with you if all you want is a training. If you're interested in changing policy, then call my number. And we'll walk away from contracts and they would just look at me and go, oh my God, she's so serious, right? So that kept me going, Ms. Duckworth. And the other thing that got me going was taking care of myself. So I always had to remember to find the time to just take a deep breath, read a book, decompress, drive across the country. Yes. Nature, driving across the country. I would just get up and tell my husband, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And I'd go meet all kinds of people around the country, which then rejuvenates my soul and reminds me why I love people the way that I do. So that's where that comes from. So you're right. It's not something that is cut and dry, and it doesn't always feel good. But if you remember what the end goal is, and that it's not a short-term thing, that it's a long-term process, then you'll be okay.
Well, there's so much wisdom in what you said, and even just your personal approach to how you sustain your motivation over the long term, I think, gets to something that I think is really important, which is I do think that grit can be learned. Somebody listening to this might think like, how does she do that? Like, that's so not yet me. But you can start to do small things in that direction. Like, oh, she said success stories. She said, pay attention to the success stories. Keep the end in mind. Like, remember that you're part of something bigger than yourself. Like, take care of yourself. Like, rejuvenate yourself. Those are all things that we could, in a sense, like copy paste out of somebody else's life that you really admire into your own. And that is why I think that, really the message of modern psychological science is that people change. They can also change on purpose, right? Because you want to make a change.
I love this. Did you learn grit from somewhere, or did you develop the concept of it?
Let's see. Well, there's that movie, the Western movie True Grit, and honestly, that is probably the thing that was knocking around in my brain when I chose the word. But really, what happened was I was interviewing high achievers across different domains, like athletes and politicians and musicians and scientists, and I was just asking them questions about who they most admired and what made them successful. So I identified that this passion and perseverance combination over long-term periods was important. But then my advisor, who was my advisor at Penn, Marty Seligman, said, well, what are you going to call it? And I said, well, I don't know if it really matters. And he's like, oh yeah, it totally matters. And so he refused to talk to me until I had a word for it. And so I made a long list of words on a yellow legal pad, and I was reading them off of my pad to him. And when I got to grit, he said, wait, stop there. What'd you say? And I was like, grit, like the movie. And he was like, yeah, that's it. So I do think what we call things matters, language matters. And I credit my advisor for making me choose a word for grit.
Yes. Oh, I could talk to you all day. When did you realize that grit was required beyond attaining degrees or creating goals?
I think when I was a teacher in classrooms, it got me started on the idea that people have so much ability. So many young people, as they count themselves out of things like very early on, like, oh, math wasn't easy for me. Oh, I guess it's not for me. Like, oh, like I'm not really much of an athlete. And I think that we get distracted by our, kind of obvious differences in innate talent that are sort of obvious to us very early on, but we don't realize that it is a marathon. And so much is going to be determined by how much effort you cumulatively put in over long periods. And so as a teacher, I saw at the end of the school year that a lot of the students that I even didn't think were going to do that well, but they did because they really put in the effort, they put it in consistently, they worked really hard, and over the long run it paid off. I think that was the first, kind of instinct that I had that like, oh, there's something different about talent and effort, and these are not the same thing, and I want to study effort.
Yes. How has this pandemic developed grit in your students at Penn? Because I know it switched their lives around.
The pandemic, man, 2020, which I'm personally very glad the election turned out the way it is. It's otherwise a really hard year, and I think that one thing to say about the fatigue everybody's feeling right now, no matter who they are and how old they are, is that I think there's something about grinding on into like the 9th and 10th month of the pandemic, and then everything else that's happening, which again, I think that there is going to be some good that comes out of it, but in the moment it is stressful and it's hard. So I think that one thing to keep in mind from research about like when people grow from adversity and challenge, it is only when they have enough support. Right. So if you're talking about adversity in the absence of support, and that means, having friends, having family, having teachers who are empathic and patient, having food to eat, having a roof over your head, without that kind of support, I don't think actually that adversity builds any kind of character. It's just bad. But when you have support, when you have the resources that you need to overcome the challenges, then I do think it can be strengthening. the sad reality is, I think there are many young people in the city who really, in the most fundamental ways, and in ways that honestly I can't even imagine, because I think it's very hard to really know like what other people's lives are like. But I know enough to say that there are many children who do not have the support to learn and grow in a year like 2020.
Yes. Wow. I would love to sit in your class. You actually had the president, the CEO of Penn. What was that like for you when she popped up in your class?
Well, I will say this. It wasn't a total surprise to me because we had been planning it for weeks, but in my undergraduate class, which I call Grit Lab, we have undergraduates who are learning about the science, but also putting into practice some of the principles of grit. So they learn how to set goals, make plans, they learn about their interests. They do a lot of reflection on their personal values and how that comes to play in their work, etc. So in the course of teaching this, I realized that what people always need are role models, right? We all need role models, and ideally we have role models who, you know, in some way we feel connection to. You know, they have the same ethnic heritage, or they, you know, they eat the same food. I mean, some connection. So we've had a diverse array of role models, and Amy Gutman was one of them. She's, by the way, first gen to college, and actually has a real sense of purpose based on her own experience, which was, you know, she experienced all of social mobility upward in her own life. And so anyway, so she was a great interview, but every class we have a 20-minute interview. Like we have A-Rod coming in 2 weeks, and, you know, we had David Chang, the chef. And so it's a little bit of a celebrity thing, but I think, you know, the idea that like these young people could see somebody who's like a little farther down the path, you know, is what they need.
Wow. You have a reputation as one of the country's leading scholars in grit, yet you originally turned down a hedge fund manager who sought to make his company grittier. Is grit something that can truly be taught, or is it innate in us and just needs to be identified?
Well, when this hedge fund manager, whose name is Warren, by the way, if you want to know his name, when he said, like, come and make my companies grittier, I said, well, I don't know how. This is over a year ago. And he said, how can you study this all day and not know how to change it? And I was like, oh, well, you know, I just published papers on it, but like, I don't really know how to teach it. And he said, well, you should get to work. That actually is the reason why I'm teaching this undergraduate class. Now, the hedge fund manager, you know, isn't getting me to teach his companies, but I, you know, decided that I would teach the people I care about most, which are, you know, young people, so students. This year, my class is going to be open in the spring. It'll be open to Philadelphia School District students at zero cost. So Penn has a Young Scholars program, and if students who are listening to this are juniors or seniors in high school, they can go to the Penn website. There's a Young Scholars program. You can apply to that. You get to take a college course for free, and you get college credit, and you could choose Grit Lab if you want that to be your class. So if you want to learn more, you can also like look on Twitter, or you can look at my website. But I do think that young people like you, I mean, I feel like, I mean, I guess you could choose lots of different issues that you could work on, but I can't think of one that's more important than preparing the next generation.
Agreed. I absolutely agree. You said something that struck me, because I have said this time and again. Every time I look at people who are in leadership positions and things are falling apart around them, I automatically say, what are your values? What are the what are the intrinsic values that you bring to the table? And I bet you I can identify why things are falling apart for you. And so what I'm finding is that people are walking into leadership spaces without really reflecting on what their personal values are, because those personal values will shape and move the decisions that they make in their lives. Describe for the listening audience now the difference between ability, character, and values. I'm excited.
Yeah, okay, so character is a word that, you know, Martin Luther King used when he wrote an essay in his first year at Morehouse. He was 18 years old, and he said, what is the purpose of education? He said the purpose of education is intelligence plus character, right? And he said intelligence is like, you know, you're able to like think critically and so forth. Maybe you could say like talent or intelligence is like in that category. But he said character is something different. I mean, character is doing the right thing for the right reason. It's who you are. It's how you choose to show up in the world. So, you know, they're both important. I would agree with Martin Luther King Jr. that is the purpose of education. So when I think about great leaders, you know, they have to be competent, right? You know, leaders have to make good decisions. They have to, you know, do things well, but also I think they do good. And I think character is really, you know, when people really trust a leader, it's not only because they're capable in the kind of technical sense of like doing their job, but also they're people who have integrity and who you can trust. So when I think of character, which sounds a little old-fashioned in 2020, I also would say it's timeless and now more than ever. And if you think about our politics and the state of this country, I mean, it's so clear to me that, first of all, I think the election was won on character. I think like we eventually chose the presidential candidate who had character and had a character that we would want our kids to, you know, to emulate and to look up to.
Yes. Now talk to us about values. Why are values so important? And where do our values come from? As a little girl growing up in Jamaica, my parents would always say things to me like this: good manners will take you where all the degrees in the world will not. It means everyone with respect from the even if you think they are beneath you, you are, especially those who you think are supposed to be beneath you. The people that are working in the fields, the people who are doing all the good things. Make sure that you turn around and help someone that's coming behind you. And that developed a set of values that followed me to the age of 50, whatever I am now. I'm older than dirt. But
30 plus.
But right. So what happens is those values, when I look around and I see all the things that are going on around me, when I notice that people aren't doing the things that should help them to thrive and grow, they'll say things like, I was told it's every man for themselves. I was told not to trust anybody. And so they bring with them a set of values to the table that continues to hinder them in their and impede their growth, right? And they're wondering why they can't make it past a certain level. Talk to us about values and what. So
you know, there's like actually scientific research on what values are and where they come from, and what kinds of values are held across cultures. So what values are beliefs about what you think are most important, right? So everybody cares about, you know, helping other people. Everybody cares about freedom. But when you talk about your personal values, it's like a rank ordering, right? What do you care about most? Right? Yeah, we all care about these things, but what are you going to trade off against something else? And the number one value that is most commonly endorsed across all cultures in the world is benevolence. It's actually caring about other people, which I heard a lot in what you just said. And of course, it's not the only way to live. Like also ambition or power are also, you know, values, or like you could look for stimulation seeking. And again, it's about your relative ranking. And for many people, though, in fact, for most people, they would say that like if at the end of the day, if they live their life the way they want to be able to say at the end that they helped other people. So that's what values are. And I think how it maps onto character is that, you know, some people use the phrase like your character is your values in action, right? So if values are what you care about, then your character is like enacting that, right? So if your mother taught you, you know, treat people with fairness or treat people with kindness, that's a value of yours, but then actually doing it, you know, like, you know, treating people actually and listening and not worrying about like how much money they make when you decide how much attention to give them. So that's putting it into action. So I like that phrase, you know, your character is your values in action. And your values, I think, by the way, is just a homework assignment for people who are listening. You know, you could think of, there's an exercise that scientists have studied where you name your highest value, right? Maybe it's kindness, maybe it's generosity, maybe it's fairness, maybe it's justice, maybe it's creativity, whatever it is. You name it and you just write about it for a few minutes. It's called the values affirmation exercise, and it was developed at Stanford. And it has many, many benefits, but I think the greatest benefit is just, you know, self-awareness, because as you say, you know, your values and your values in action, I mean, they really are who you are as a person.
Agreed. Oh, I need to have you back on. How can people find you? How can people reach you?
I think the best way is if you're a parent or an educator, you can go to my nonprofit website. We put up everything for free. So it's actionable advice based on science about how kids should grow up, and it's characterlab.org. And if you want to send a high school student my way, I would love to see Philadelphia students take this opportunity to take a free class. And you can follow me on Twitter. I don't even know what my Twitter handle is. I think it's like Angela Duck W or something.
Okay.
And anyway, I'm a big fan, so I appreciate the conversation.
Oh, thank you. It was such a pleasure talking to you today about this work, the Grit Lab. So Angela Duckworth is the founder and CEO of Character Lab, a nonprofit whose mission is to advance scientific insights that help children thrive. Madame, it was a pleasure. It was an absolute pleasure to have this conversation, and I am going to find you some students.
All right, excellent. That's your job.
All right. You have a wonderful afternoon, okay?
Thank you. To be continued.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Oh, that was such a good conversation. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we will be right back after these messages.
Millennials are known for many things, but did you know that they are currently on track to have worse mental and physical health than the generations that came before them? The Economy League of Greater Philadelphia is challenging our communities to change that with the Well City Challenge. This community-led competition puts the power in your hands to help shape how we address major health challenges across our region, with an emphasis on inclusion and collaboration. So if you care about the health of your community, bring them innovative ideas they need to turn this challenge into opportunities for the millennial generation. Visit economyleague.org to apply today for a chance to compete for $100,000 in prizes and investments. The Well City Challenge is presented by Independence Blue Cross.
WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Many of us have heard this term before, but may not know what it really means. Compassionate living brings mindfulness and peace to the center of your daily life. Compassionate living can look like this. Number 1, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Number 2, choose to speak kindly to others, even when you're upset. Number 3, become a good listener and practice empathy at home and at work. We sometimes think in order to live with compassion, we have to become someone else. Not so. In fact, allowing peacefulness to be at the center of our daily interactions is something we can practice every day. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at WURDradio.com.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you're just joining us, I just had the most fascinating conversation with Angela Duckworth, who has a character lab at the University of Pennsylvania. It's called the Grit Lab. And she was discussing with me, if you didn't see the interview as I was discussing it for the last 20 minutes, I would like you to go back and watch it again. Because we were talking about what creates someone who is successful beyond the pale, right? And that you have to be passionate about something that is not just about you. That, you must be competent, but integrity is who you really are and what you do, right? Doing the right thing for the right reasons. Then she said something that values are beliefs. Values are what you think, beliefs. Your values and beliefs are what you think and are most important. And value is character are values in action. So when we look at leadership that's not doing the things, I say this every single time that I'm on the air. When I'm in meetings and I'm sitting and I'm listening to people drone on and on and on, and I'm looking at their faces and I say, what's driving you? Is it the programming? Is it the people that are around you? Or is it the money? And you can tell by the conversations that people are having every single day around them that if it's the money or are they in for another reason. When you're driven by things that don't work for the people in general, but just looking at the bottom line and what's in your pocket, you will find that you can only go but a certain pace, and then you're going to be stuck because your value system is completely out of whack. And it's a conversation that I'd like to have. Everyone who desires to be in leadership, whether it was thrust upon you or not, should really do a values assessment and decide where they land, because it'll determine how far their business or leadership grows or not. So, yeah, here we are. I have Miss Patricia King on the line, and I'm happy to talk to her, but let me get some of these callers out. Hold on, Miss Patricia. I'm so happy to talk to you. George, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you today?
Marva is good. I'm having great conversations over here in these Waconda streets. What can I do for you, sir?
You know, I really wanted to talk about the thing where they're going to have the hearings tomorrow on the thing with the police, with the FOP's budget, you know, what their contract and all that is.
Yes. Hold on
it's going to be real interesting, you know, how the key players play the song, whereas though you only have certain people going to be able to get through, you know, to play it up.
Wait a minute. Hold on one second, George. Is this the media advisory where the city council holds first ever public hearing on the administration's proposed contract for the police union? Is that the one you're talking about?
That's
right.
what I'm talking about.
Yep. So on tomorrow, City Council will hold its first ever public hearing on the administration's proposal for the new labor contract with the police union. In June, Council member Catherine Gilmore Richardson, at large, introduced Bill number 200364, requiring a public hearing before the administration begins a new contract negotiation with the Fraternal Order of Police. The public hearing, which adds transparency and accountability to the process, is part of Council's action on police reform. To sign up for public comment, call 215-686-0454 or email Eliza, ELIZA.Alford, ALFORD @phila.gov by Tuesday, by today at 3 p.m. I'm so sorry. I'm just really, Troy sent this over to me. And until you said it to me just now, George, you know, thank you for reminding me. I really appreciate that. So what do you want to add to this, sir?
But it's going to be real interesting because now you're opening up a big can of worms, meaning that the public, now you can go and ask for anybody. You want to know about everybody's contract. You know, in other words, they're going to start negotiating contracts out in the open and in the public, which that's supposed to be between management and the members. So council's setting a real dangerous, you know, new set of rules.
So you're not for this?
Say that again?
Is that what so you're not for this? You don't think this should be happening? Is that what you're calling me to tell me?
Well, I think you know, look, I'm not one of these people believing all this secrecy and all this here, but it's like now you're in everybody's business. You know, if you may not think so, and then you're at war with the police. It's bad enough that they're not responding to calls. Now their leadership going to tell them, see what they're doing? They're putting our business out there. Not like
so
one dime.
Wait. So hold on. I love you to death, George, but I have to ask you this question. You see what's going on around the country. Where do we work on transparency to make sure that everybody gets the best of both worlds, that the police get what they need for their safety and growth, and the citizenry get what they need for their safety and growth? Where do we draw the line here in terms of transparency for the folks who are being impacted consistently through police departments everywhere?
The first thing you got to do is put people in the room that you can trust. And you got to put people in there that's honest. Negotiating with the police, the problem is you never have the right people sitting there at the table negotiating anything. Most people at the table negotiating for themselves, or they're negotiating for a firm or whatever. Now you're negotiating for the public, you're negotiating for the council person. Now you're negotiating for a whole lot of terms, which is only going to make it worse. The public is going to be at war with the police. End of the day, you ask yourself, who's going to win? Who's winning right now? The police is winning right now. Some things you just don't do. Some things you just don't want to know, and some things you shouldn't know. Everything has a price, and there are consequences with what you do.
So you don't think that in this... Hold on one second, because I have to ask you. You don't think that what they're getting ready to do in this public hearing, that they have enough foresight to not make some things public? You think they're just going to throw everything out there and make it public?
It sounds good right now. It's all this stuff like pop and glitter. You know, you see a new ring, you see a new car. All that's good. Sounds good. But as time goes on, you find it's not. Now, Kathy's been around 10 years or more. She knows how the system works, but when this one, and I'm with Kathy 1,000%, she's one of the few new council people that I have respect for. But this here, to me personally, is a bad thing. Because
so here's what I want
is
you
the
to
one
do.
going to have to pay.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to the hearing or whatever, Zoom, because I'm sure it'll be a Zoom call, and then call me back on Thursday and tell me what your thoughts are. Okay?
Well, I'm going to look at it on Zoom, but you notice on Zoom, they make sure that only certain people get through. That's the hardest thing to get through to a Zoom. Why do you think the council people be giving each other shout-outs and high-fives? They waste the first half hour or whatever shouting each other out and then telling you a bunch of crap.
All right. So, George, I got a guest that has to get off the air soon.
Thank you.
So call me back, darling. All right. Bye-bye. All right. So the rest of you who are online waiting, just hold on for me. Don't hang up. This won't be a long conversation. Patricia King is a Philadelphia native employed with PICO for over 22 years. She is very active in the community. In 1992, founded Telecommunication Excellence of Associate Managers Team Scholarship Program. The program awarded over 100,000 in college scholarships and books to low-income families. She's on today to talk about PICO LIHEAP, lower utility bill for low-income families. Hi, Ms. King. How are you?
I'm well. I'm good. How are you, Andrea?
I'm good. Listen, you see, COVID has us in all these different spots now. We can't even see and hug each other anymore.
I know. I like coming to the radio station so we
know
each other and talk.
I know, but we'll get back to it at some point. And in fact, this morning when I woke up and it was freezing cold, I said, oh, I need to get Patricia and I need to get my other girl back on so we can talk about what's happening here. Are we in the space where people's electricity will not be turned off now until the spring?
Well, it depends. If you're a low-income customer and you reach out to us, then yes, that is true. So I want to just make sure that I put that out there because, you know, when COVID first hit, we made a decision to not terminate anyone, including big, small businesses, like no one. We did no terminations whatsoever. And then there was some LIHEAP funding that came through the CARES Act, some special LIHEAP funding that came in the summer months that doesn't normally come. And we advertised, we pushed it. A lot of people really didn't take advantage of that. We offered payment agreements for customers. They didn't take advantage of that either because people were kind of, you know, sitting back saying, well, the utilities aren't terminating service, so we don't need to do anything. And the problem with that is that we're also not forgiving balances. So those balances that are there, that were there, are going to continue and get bigger and bigger, so you're kind of like digging a hole for yourself. So you really, really need to, because at some point, you know, we're going to have to collect, and we want to make it as easy as possible for customers. So if you reach out to us, then, yeah, you're going to be protected, and you're low income. You're definitely going to be protected. But the thing that I also want to really, really stress is LIHEAP. So like I mentioned, there was money in the summer, special COVID money. You know, about $23 million was left on the table. Folks just didn't, and this is statewide, so not just our service territory, but the entire state of Pennsylvania. People just didn't, you know, apply. So now the current LIHEAP season is open. That opened on November 2nd. And because there was extra money from the summer, that's added into this money, so we have more money. And so customers can, and even if you're not delinquent, if you qualify, meaning your household is 150% of the federal poverty level or below, you can get up to $1,000 per household. Now, if you are delinquent, you can get up to an additional $800 per household, so for a total of $1,800 per household. That's a lot of money, and that can kind of take care of, you know, all those arrears that you've been building up over this time, because we know a lot of people lost their jobs due to COVID. I mean, a lot of stuff is going on, but we really need folks to take advantage of this. So that's why I really appreciate you allowing me a couple minutes on your show to just kind of put that message out there that there is free money available. Free money. You don't have to pay it back. There's no lien on your property. Like, this is free money that is available, but we just need customers to apply.
Okay, so Miss Patricia, because you've been on the air with us before, and I've had conversations. After I've gotten off the air with you, one of the things that people have said to me is you have to make so little money to get this money that a lot of them don't qualify for it, but they're still struggling. So, where do we find the balance, right? So people have to make. So if you're a family of 4, what is the monthly income you are able to bring in order to have access to this kind of funding?
So for a family of 4, the monthly income, if you make $3,275 a month or less, you qualify.
Okay, a month or less for a family of 4.
For a family of 4. If you have, more folks in the household, that number goes up. You have fewer people, the number goes down. And I get that there are people who are over the threshold who can't get the funding. The threshold, just so you know, these aren't PICO numbers. These are the federal poverty level numbers. So this is from the federal government, and they give us the chart, and we go by their numbers. So I agree with you that there are people, I've talked to people, and it's kind of heartbreaking, that are like right over the threshold, and they can't get it. And that's very unfortunate. There's unfortunately nothing I can do about that because we have to go by the federal poverty guidelines. That said, there are so many people who are way under that who are eligible. So it's not like we don't have enough people who are, unfortunately, Philadelphia amongst large cities has the most poverty in the nation.
Yes, it does. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are so many people that make less than half of that.
Right.
So we definitely, there's still a pool. Even at full funding, LAHEAP can only serve 1 in every 5 families that qualify. So, you do have that other scenario, and for full transparency, there's nothing we can do if a household is over the income guideline. However, there are a lot of households, more households than we have money, if they just applied for funding.
All right. So Mia from Southwest is on line 2. She has a question about LAHEAP. Hi, Mia.
Great.
Are you there?
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Okay. Okay. I have an issue. My daughter has applied for LAHEAP. The last 2 years, she was getting it fine at one time, but then the last 2 years she applied, she was denied the funding because they still have, well, let me just say this. I have 6 children total, and so at different times throughout their lives, different ones of her siblings live with her. Mm-hmm. So, for some reason, the LAHEAP still has those other siblings as, living as being a part of her household, which they no longer are. So therefore, it's coming up that she's not eligible because, her family size and the criteria, whatever the criteria is that you mentioned about the federal government, puts out those guidelines you have to go by. How can we resolve this? Because she has, this particular daughter that I'm speaking of, she has 1 child, and it's herself. She's been out of work. She was recently diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and she's been out of work, and her income has definitely changed. And we know that she meets the federal guidelines, the poverty guidelines, but because somehow they still have these other siblings as being a part of her household, they keep denying her. And we've written letters to say, they're no longer, like one sibling is actually, she lives in Hershey, Pennsylvania. She doesn't even live in Philly at all, but they still have, her name and her social attached to my daughter's account.
Okay, so let me say that how many people are in her household? Just 2, her and her child?
Well, it's her, her son, and then one other person, which is my son, her sibling, her brother. So
okay,
it's 3 people in the household.
And do you know what the total household monthly income is?
Yeah, well, actually, now let me tell you this. She doesn't have any income right now. She's actually due to start a job on this coming Monday. She was hired, and she'll be starting a job. But she doesn't have any income, so that's how we know that, she meets the guidelines.
Okay. How is she on CAP, on PICO's CAP program, do you know?
She is on PICO's CAP program, but and let me say this. She had been applying for the LAHEAP services to help with her PGW bill, because that's the one that's like out of control. And, you know, she's so afraid that every time the gas bill comes, which she hadn't received one for a while because, you know, during the COVID, there was like that moratorium where they weren't shutting people off or whatever. But she recently got a gas bill, and she called me like, Mom, I'm afraid to even open it, you know, because she's afraid to even open the bill because she thinks there's going to be a shut-off notice, and her and her son and my son are going to be in there without heat for the winter.
Okay, so let me just say this. First, thank you for your question. Thank you for taking up for your child. I'm a mother. I know how that. We're going to take up for our kids.
Absolutely, that's right.
I want to say that I agree with you that if those people are not in the house anymore, then they should not be counted. So let me say this: if you can give your information to the
producer
station, then I can talk, because I don't want to get too specific into.
Right. Thank you. I was just getting ready to say we can't have that conversation here, but
I don't want to get my cell phone out on the air either. So
yes, there you go.
So yeah,
all right.
If you can facilitate getting that back, the information back to me, then we can communicate with you.
No worries. All right. So Miss Mia, hang up, and don't hang up. Wait, hold on, and Michael will get your information, and we'll get it over to Miss King. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. You're quite welcome.
Have a great day. Okay.
All right. Bye. Oh my Lord, that was interesting. You know, people are really getting desperate.
Yeah.
You know, Miss King. So, what else would you like folks to know before we get off the air?
Before we get off the air, I would just like people to know to please call us. Please reach out to us so that we can give you the services. You know, in addition to LIHEAP, we have CAP, we have other programs. We have arrearage forgiveness programs. You know, we have a lot of stuff that we can do and the caller said it perfectly, because when we used to be in person, we would have, you know, people come up to us and they would bring their PICO bills and they weren't even opened. You know, so it's like they don't want to open it. And I get it. I wouldn't want to open it either. I'm like, I know I don't have any money. Why should I open it? Open the bill, call us. We have special programs. We have programs all the time, but now because of COVID, we have additional programs. So just reach out to us and give us a call.
What's the phone number, Ms. King?
So I'm going to give you the LIHEAP hotline because I want people to apply for that first.
Okay.
That is 1-800-34-HELP-4. That's 1-800-34-HELP-4.
Okay, I'm going to put that on the social media page. And the other number, is there another number?
Oh, sure. For CAP, the number is 1-800-774-7040. And let me just give you the website, pico.com/help, HELP.
/help. Thank you so much, Ms. King. I'd like to talk to you again in December and January. Let's just keep this going, okay? So we can get more people register for this program. Because you're right, there are too many poor people at the poverty level that are not able to access these things because they just don't know. So let's continue to have the dialogue about it. Thank you so much for being on the air with me today.
Thank you so much as well. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye. You are listening to The Source. I know I have callers waiting, so just hang on. I'll get you once we get back from break. 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we will be right back after these messages.
Hey, WURD family. Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to WURD Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with Word with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Keep your dial locked to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media.
In Pennsylvania, it's now illegal to sell tobacco products, including cigarettes, cigars, chewing tobacco, vapes, or electronic cigarettes to anyone under 21. Stores can get fined up to $1,000 for selling tobacco to someone who is underage. Know the law. Check IDs. Post your retailer license. Make sure only employees have access to tobacco products and only sell tobacco products to customers aged 21 and older. Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Livelihood. The new initiative from WURD Radio to connect Philadelphians to resources to help take the next steps in their professional lives. WordWorks.com features career readiness tools, entrepreneurship resources, funding opportunities, and events to expand your livelihood. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. My goodness, if you are just joining us, you have missed a show. We had, to start out with, as soon as I got on the air, I had Dr. Ayla Stanford on, who was telling us about they're at Esperanza right now. They're at several locations throughout the week. I just want to make you guys aware, because let me tell you something. The testing for COVID-19, they're at Esperanza today, Hunting Park at 5th Street until 4 p.m. On Thursday, they're at Sharon Baptist Church in West Philadelphia from 4 to 7 p.m. On Friday, from 10 to 2, they're at Deliverance in North Philly. And on Saturday, they're at the Leo Cora Center from 11 to 4 p.m. Then I spoke with Reverend Dr. Alan Waller. We're talking about, life after the elections. Then I had on the air with me Sincere Harris, who is a phenom in politics. She's at the local level, loves Philadelphia, loves policy, but she has helped to turn Pennsylvania on its ear and made it a blue state with the work of her team here. She's 36 years old. I'm going to keep saying this because for those who think you have to be 105 to lead, not so. And then I had Angela Duckworth, who talked about the Grit Lab at the University of Pennsylvania. And she went into describing things that I've always said, that if your moral character is filled with turpitude, you can only go but so far, And so what is the character? What is your value system, that you bring to the table? Because it will determine how you show up as a leader. And then I had Patricia King talking about PICO and LIHEAP and lower utility bills. She wanted you all to, get online and apply for LIHEAP. And that number is, because I take a ton of notes. I'm always taking notes so I can go back. The LIHEAP hotline is 1-800-34-HELP-4. Again, that's 1-800-34-HELP and the number 4. The CAP program for PICO is 1-800-774-0474. Again, that is 1-800-774-04. I'm sorry, 1-800-774-7040. I don't know what I'm looking at. 7040. And you can also go to pico.com/help. It was a full show today, so I'm going to end it by taking a couple of callers. Let me see. Make sure. Vicky Blackburn says, my to-do list is a mile long after this show. So very grateful. Phenomenal show. Haley says, thanks, Andrea, for providing the go-between with the LIHEAP representative and the caller. You could have pushed the caller away, but yet you gave that caller opportunity. I admire that. People who really care, and I do. Ms. Shea Pugh says, awesome show as always, full of great conversations, insight, and resources. Thank you all. Thank you all for pushing mobile. So let me take these last couple of calls. Rosalind keeps calling and hanging up, but LC, are you there?
LC is here.
Hey, how you doing?
And a great afternoon to you, my dear.
Good afternoon to you, too.
You do take time, and you do care, and we appreciate you. A couple of things. Number one, I heard Greg Brinkley when he called in earlier, and I just wanted to follow up a little bit concerning the police. This hearing that's coming on. Was it George that mentioned it, too?
George,
George mentioned it. George has always given us the doom factor. You know, we have to always be concerned about upsetting somebody. Well, guess what? They upset us. They're killing us. We're losing our lives. We're being harassed. We're being, abused. And so we need to just keep on pushing and push the envelope. So this hearing, I think I won't be able to, get involved, but somebody needs to bring up the arbitration process that they use with this police department. And they also need to demand that the police officers get reprimanded for giving fines or demotions or something for infractions of the regulations, especially concerning deadly force. Now, I did send you that email on the document called the Collaboration Reform Initiative. I sent it on the 10th.
Hold on, let me just go over and look, because let's see.
It was a PDF document, and the full title is An Assessment of Deadly Force in the Philadelphia Police Department, and it occurred in 2015.
So, no, I don't. As I'm going down.
It's not in your spam anywhere?
No, it's not. I'm looking. And, because if I'd seen that, I would have been able to have that conversation with you. Nope.
Okay.
I'm seeing everything
right
but
now,
that.
I'm just having difficulty getting through to my email. But I don't know. Maybe you might be able to Google it.
Yes. Give it to me again. Say it to me again.
Okay. The document is entitled Collaborative Reform Initiative, and it was put together by George Fackner and Steve Carter. And it's about 188 pages.
Worries, Mobile likes to read.
And then the rest of it is an assessment of deadly force in the Philadelphia Police Department.
Oh, assessment of deadly force.
Force in the Philadelphia Police Department. And remember, I had mentioned that the former police commissioner was Charles A. Ramsey. He's now the chairperson, leader of PCCD, Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. Okay, in Harrisburg, under which there's a committee called the Victims of Crime Committee, the Victim Services Advisory Committee, Victim Services Advisory Committee.
Okay.
That's under the in that department. The PCD. Okay.
All right.
So that's where Commissioner is now.
Okay, so I'm going to look it up, LC. I just looked up and realized I have 1 minute before I have to get off the air.
All right,
so
my
thank
dear.
you
I
so
thank
much.
You.
Oh,
Thank
always,
you.
always.
Bye-bye.
Dr. Eugene, put him on for 30 seconds, please, because I have to get off the air in like 25 seconds. Dr. Eugene, are you there?
Yes, I am, ma'am. I'm so happy today. This is a happy day for me because Barack Obama's book was released. America, I think it's a promise. He was on 60 Minutes, as you know. And you know, Mrs. Sanders, that God blessed me with writing a book on LeBron James and Barack Obama. And I want all the people there in Philadelphia to know about Words Crossing Across. Word search on Barack Obama, found on Amazon.com.
All right. I literally have to get off the air. So I want you to call me back on Thursday so we can talk, okay? All right. Thank you so much, sir. Have a good one. All right. God bless you. This episode of The Source is now over. Coming up next is Evening Words. Yes, Evening Words. I love the title of that new show. With Nick Taliaferro. I do believe he has someone in. Tiffany Bacon is in for him for the next day or so. And I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. Thank you, as always, for being open and honest and receiving and having a listening ear for everything we talk about on the show. I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.